Chapter 629. Okay, Mrs. Imo Ting had already left for Hairue, so Tongning was all alone at home. If she were to bring the woman home and she had ulterior motives, it would be hard for a pregnant woman to deal with her. So, Tongning arranged for them to meet in the garden. At a time like this, Tongning didn't have to help, but she wasn't a snobbish person. If a normal person needed her help, she wouldn't reject them, especially since she had in Zaheo. When Tongning was ruthless, she was always dealing with her enemies. She would never point her knife at an innocent person. This was what the old woman liked about Tongning. Soon, the old woman arrived at the garden in the heart of the villa. Meanwhile, Tongning arrived in the garden wearing a jacket. As soon as the two women saw each other, Tongning looked at the old woman suspiciously. Of course, at such a close distance, it was impossible for her not to notice something was wrong. Is this a burn? Yes, it's been many years. The old woman subconsciously tightened her mask. Tongning smiled and did not force her. You are the mother of the artist that Zaheo signed, right? We met once that night. But why did you come looking for me? Xiao Xing is working as a stunt double for Mr. N. She is usually training and isn't at home. I heard about the rumors between you and Mr. N from Xiao Xing, so I'm afraid. Are you afraid that it will affect your daughter's future? Tongning seemed to have seen through the old woman's motive as she smiled gently. You don't need to worry. This matter won't affect your daughter. I know you are innocent. I have a way to prove it. After hearing this, Tongning smiled even wider. Auntie, you are not from the entertainment industry. You don't need to get involved. Especially since this matter has nothing to do with your daughter, you don't need to put in so much effort. I know you are friends with Mr. N, and I'm a woman. If I keep clinging to Mr. N, it will negatively affect him and Xiao Xing. So, I can only look for you. It seemed reasonable to put it that way. I don't have any ulterior motives. I simply want to help. Actually, Tongning could understand why the old woman did this. She was trying to protect her daughter's future. I can handle this matter. Don't worry, Zaheo's reputation will not be tarnished, and your daughter will not be harmed in any way. Mrs. Imo, you are, after all, a woman and pregnant. The people around you must have their own families, so they can't protect you all the time. So, can I make a bold suggestion? I want to come to Hyatt Regency to take care of you. I can take care of all the household chores and have experience taking care of children. I can take good care of you. But I'm not used to being taken care of by others. Apart from being worried, Tongning was also speaking the truth. After all, she still didn't know this woman's background. It wouldn't be wrong to be careful. But now that you're in trouble, I can come up with a plan to help you solve the problem, as long as you don't mind my current appearance. The woman's eyes were filled with sincerity. It had been a long time since Tongning had seen such genuine anxiousness. She couldn't understand why the woman would come to her and care so much about her. I really don't need it, Tongning replied apologetically. Don't worry, I will tell Zaheo to take good care of your daughter. I won't let her suffer the slightest bit. Hayes, forget it, the woman sighed. If you change your mind and need someone to take care of you, let me know. I will always be ready. Thank you. Tongning nodded her head in seriousness. After all, there weren't many people that were as passionate and kind as her. You're welcome. You're a good actress with no airs. Tongning watched as the woman left. It was a normal thing to do, but for some reason, she felt a sense of worry in her heart. Afterwards, she told Imo Ting, I don't know why, but rejecting her makes me feel a little bad. What is she after? Imo Ting's voice sounded a little hollow. She wants a good future for her daughter. Actually, if her family background is clean and she's flexible, I can accept her suggestion, Imo Ting said. At the very least, you are now 7 months pregnant. I'm no longer comfortable leaving you alone at home. Let me first do a background check on her. That's right. You are 7 months pregnant. Okay, Tongning replied. Afterwards, Tongning told Zaheo about the situation. And Zaheo was suddenly curious, so he went to look for Chen Xingyan in private. Chen Xingyan was preparing for an interview. She was dressed in a black tank top and had no makeup on, but her martial arts moves were smooth. The little devil was capable. She simply needed to overcome the psychological barrier of not being able to face the camera. However, It didn't take long before Qin Xingyan disappeared from sight. Just as Nziheo looked around for her, she suddenly dropped down from above and asked, "Why are you looking for me? Can't you make your entrance a little simpler?" Nziheo asked as he furrowed his brows. Qin Xingyan leaped into the air and landed on the ground. She then sat down cross-legged. "Is it simple enough now? If you have something to say, then say it." "Did you know that your mother has approached Tongning to be a maid?" "My mother?" Qin Xingyan turned around and pointed to herself in surprise. "Why would she do that? She usually lets me wash her underwear and socks. Why does she have to wash someone else's socks as soon as I leave? Is your family lacking money?" Nziheo asked with his arms crossed. "I owe you $2 million. Is that considered lacking?" Qin Xingyan humphed. "Can your mother be trusted? If it's possible, I would like her to take care of Tongning." Nziheo actually trusted the old woman. It was an indescribable feeling that the old woman would never hurt Tongning and Mo Ting. "Why do I feel like my mother isn't reliable? Instead of taking care of her own daughter, she want to be someone else's maid." "Nziheo, she's doing this for you, the little devil. She wants your future to be guaranteed. That's why she wants to infiltrate the enemy's ranks." With this thought, Qin Xingyan nodded her head and calmed down. She should have done this a long time ago. "Nziheo, but I still find it strange. No matter how I think about it, why does it have to be Tongning?" Qin Xingyan didn't understand. "Why can't someone else do it? Do you even need to think about it? Your mother is amazing. She directly approached the biggest backer in the entertainment industry. Yet, you're still not satisfied." Nziheo rolled his eyes. He was already in his 30s, but, recently, he couldn't control his temper because of this brat. Chapter 630. Get ready. We are about to head to the audition. "You still haven't told me what kind of film it is," Qin Xingyan asked as she followed behind Nziheo. "You'll know when you get there." Nziheo remained mysterious as he smiled seductively. Actually, when Nziheo wasn't boring, he had a mature charm. However, he always pretended to be serious. Sometimes, Qin Xingyan even wondered how cool this man would be if he knew how to smoke and race. Yet, he chose to live a serious life. Boring. It didn't take long before Nziheo brought Qin Xingyan to the audition venue. It was a relatively famous training ground in Beijing. The reason why the audition was held here was because they were looking for the best action actors. Qin Xingyan immediately noticed the name of the production team, The Savage Wars. It was an American sci-fi film. Above all, they weren't looking for a stunt double. They were looking for an action actor that had to appear on screen. Qin Xingyan immediately wanted to run away, but Nziheo locked her in the car. "Why are you running? I know about this film. They don't hire stunt doubles. Don't forget our initial promise." If it was Tongning and she was given the same opportunity, if she was also afraid of appearing on screen, she would think of all sorts of ways to overcome the obstacles in her heart. Because, she knows, those that run away will never see the light of day. "Firstly, I'm not Tongning. Secondly, I don't like to be lectured," Qin Xingyan replied arrogantly. "I hate it when people compare me to others. I like to be free and do what I like to do. Only the capable have the right to say no." Nziheo pulled out a contract and threw it at Qin Xingyan. "Look at the contract yourself. Here is the 6th rule." Qin Xingyan immediately flipped it open. It clearly stated that during the contract, she could not go against her manager's reasonable arrangements. "Are you trying to trick me? You can get out of the car right now, but first, place the $20 million penalty fee in front of me," Nziheo instructed. "I refuse to believe that I can't tame your arrogant personality." As soon as Qin Xingyan saw Nziheo was serious and that he was even more arrogant than she was, she immediately became obedient. To put it simply, she was the type of person that bullied the weak and feared the strong. She especially liked people that could suppress her. "Let me make this clear first. If you screw up, don't blame me." Although Qin Xingyan still didn't obey Nziheo, at least she didn't resist. Nziheo got out of the car and led Qin Xingyan into the training grounds. The training grounds were already filled with experts who had heard of Qin Xingyan's fame and were all ready to go. Qin Xingyan continued to act sloppily, especially as she watched others audition. Her eyes were filled with disdain. "There are still 10 people in front. After that, it will be your turn. I, Qin Xingyan said. And Qin Xingyan did not follow. In reality, Qin Xingyan really wanted to sneak away. But, as soon as she entered the bathroom, she overheard the discussions of the people around her. Chun and Tu Oven, the one who won the Fei Tian Best New Director Award. Are you trying to say that he cheated on you with Tongning? One of the men spoke in a softer voice, but Chen Xingyan could still hear it clearly. Sure. Do you want Hai Rui to take revenge on you? Everyone is worried about their own safety, but Zaheo doesn't seem to care. He even brought an artist here for an audition. Did you see that young lady? She's 20 years old at most. She's not bad looking, but you can tell that she's not a proper action actress. Do you even need to ask? Where can she find any real talent at her age? Hearing this, Chen Xingyan pushed open the cubicle door and swaggered over to the sink. As she washed her hands, she lifted her head and glared at the two gossiping women. She was used to being shameless, but of course, she couldn't afford to be taken advantage of. It was bad enough that they were talking about Zaheo, but how dare they talk about her? Nonsense. I don't have any real talent? Do you? Chen Xingyan asked straightforwardly. The two women felt a little awkward after being caught gossiping behind someone's back. So, they subconsciously looked elsewhere. I have my eyes on the two of you. Don't let me find out your names. Otherwise, I will be the first to report you to Hai Rui. As soon as the two women heard that Qin Xingyan was going to report to Hai Rui, they immediately apologized. Sorry, we were just being rude. Please forgive us. Qin Xingyan glanced at the two women and scoffed before she walked out of the bathroom without saying a word. As the people in front were too useless, the interviews usually took a minute, and some took less than 10 seconds. Just as it was about to be Chen Xingyan's turn, where was she? And Zaheo lifted his left hand and looked at his watch. Did Chen Xingyan actually need 10 minutes to go to the bathroom? Did the little rascal really retreat and run away? Not long after, the interviewer called Chen Xingyan's name. It seemed someone had adjusted the speed and moved her closer to the front. But where was he supposed to find her? And Zaheo took a deep breath. His voice was filled with disappointment. Just as he stood up to leave, Chen Xingyan walked past him. I'll go in first. I thought you ran away. Even if I wanted to run away, I should have beaten them up first. Chen Xingyan had actually returned to the lobby a while ago. Coincidentally, she saw the two women getting ready for their interview and assumed they were from the same group. And Zaheo thought she was enlightened, so he sat back down. But who would have thought? After entering the room, Chen Xingyan was originally supposed to wait for a notice. But Chen Xingyan directly approached the interviewer and said in broken English, I can fight with them and act as the villain. As soon as the interviewer heard Chen Xingyan's suggestion, he felt it was quite interesting and agreed. So, Chen Xingyan got what she wanted, the chance to beat someone up. Back when she was an extra at the film base, she loved to beat people up and then fix their broken bones. Now that she had come across two women with foul mouths, she was going to beat them to death. So, she didn't care about the setting. All she cared about was beating them up. She forgot that there were cameras all around her as she walked up to them and punched them. The women sensed her seriousness, so they had no choice but to fight with all their might. So, out of all the actors present, the fight between the three women was the most realistic. Although Chen Xingyan was fighting one against two, her movements were smooth and fluid. Her strength was shocking. The interviewers couldn't help but praise, perfect. But Chen Xingyan didn't care. She directly beat the woman up until she had a nosebleed. She then smiled innocently under the woman's hateful gaze. I'm sorry. My fists hold grudges. You. Chen Xingyan rolled her eyes at the two women before she swaggered out of the training hall. Seeing her like this, and Zaheo couldn't help but ask, do you have a grudge against them? It's none of your business. Chen Xingyan still remembered Zaheo, so she didn't want to talk to him. Wait for further notice. And Zaheo's lips curved upwards. It turned out, the little devil's mental illness wasn't completely incurable. Chapter 631. After Emoting agreed to let the woman enter Hyatt Regency, he immediately instructed Feng Yu to do a background check on the woman. It turned out, the woman's surname was Bai and her first name was Li Hua. She was once from a wealthy family, but her family fell on hard times. It was also at that time that her family caught fire and her appearance was ruined. However, she met her savior, Shin Boyo. Over time, they fell in love and eventually got married and gave birth to Qin Xingyan. After finding out about the woman's background, Tongning gave her a phone call. Of course, as Lu Che was still overseas, Mo Ting left the matter of making arrangements for the woman in Hyatt Regency to Long Jie. As soon as Long Jie arrived at Hyatt Regency and saw the woman, she couldn't help but ask why she kept her face covered. The woman couldn't avoid it, so she had no choice but to tell her the truth. I was burned many years ago. That's why I'm like this. Does Tongning know? Long Jie was only concerned about whether she would scare Tongning. Yes, she knows. Bai Lihua nodded. Don't worry, I will take good care of her. That better be the case. Since Mo Ting had given his approval, Long Jie had no reason to doubt her character. Of course, with Tongning's abilities, she wouldn't be able to do anything to her under Tongning's nose. It didn't take long before the two women arrived at Mo Ting and Tongning's home. At this time, Tongning was practicing the script for concubine Ning. Since your surname is Bai, I will call you Annie Bai from now on. Long Jie will arrange everything else for you, Tongning said politely as she put down her script. Meanwhile, seeing Tongning like this, Bai Lihua felt extremely comfortable. At home, Tongning appeared even more calm and graceful. She was as calm as a chrysanthemum flower. In fact, she appeared extraordinary and aloof from worldly affairs. Okay, Mrs. Mo, you can just call me Tongning. She had no intention of treating Bai Lihua like a servant. Let's go. I'll show you around. Bai Lihua nodded her head at Long Jie. Just as she was about to turn around, she suddenly thought of something and asked, have you thought of a way to deal with Hua Wenfeng? How could something like this be a problem for our Tongning? Seeing that Tongning did not respond, Long Jie answered Bai Lihua's question. That's good. If you need anything from me, please let me know, Bai Lihua said sincerely. Tongning nodded her head and allowed Long Jie to show Bai Lihua around while she immersed herself in her script. Has Hua Wenfeng always treated Tongning so badly? Bai Lihua asked as she suppressed the anger in her heart while familiarizing herself with the surroundings. He hasn't stopped since the first day he came back. Long Jie replied in disdain. Her hatred for Tongning is ridiculous. You've seen for yourself how much trouble she's caused Tongning since her return. You don't know why. Who knows? She slandered Tongning for hurting her, accused Tongning of having an affair with someone else, and said the child in her stomach was unhealthy. I've never seen such a disgusting mother-in-law. After hearing this, Bai Lihua clenched her fists. It doesn't matter. Just return them to her one by one in the future. After hearing Bai Lihua's words, Long Jie froze. Was she imagining things? She had a feeling that the woman in front of her hated Hua Wenfeng more than anyone else. But, seeing that Bai Lihua's expression was normal, Tongning dismissed her worries. She was probably overthinking things. Bai Lihua was just a normal commoner. How could she possibly come into contact with someone like Hua Wenfeng? By the way, can Miss Long tell me where Hua Wenfeng is staying in a moment? That way, I can be mentally prepared. Long Jie thought for a moment and felt the woman was quite thorough. So, she nodded her head. Okay, I'll tell you everything in a moment. She was finally here. Hua Wenfeng, your retribution shouldn't be too far away. In reality, Tongning was not used to Bai Lihua's new arrival at Hyatt Regency. After all, when Mo Ting wasn't around, she was the only one moving around in the big house. Now that Bai Lihua was here, she had to give it a try before she felt at ease. So, she deliberately placed her scripts all over the place and pretended to fall asleep on the sofa. It didn't take long before Bai Lihua entered the living room. Seeing that Tongning had fallen asleep, Bai Lihua retrieved a thin blanket from the guest room and placed it over her. She also placed the scripts in a hidden drawer on the coffee table because she knew they were extremely important. Tongning felt she had gone a little overboard. She was certain that Bai Lihua had entered Hyatt Regency with a motive, but Bai Lihua had no ill intentions towards her. So, Tongning slowly relaxed. Soon, Mo Ting returned home. Bai Lihua had already prepared a sumptuous meal. Taking into consideration that Tongning was pregnant, the meal was well-balanced and nutritious. Seeing this, Tongning couldn't help but smile at Ting. Now that Annie is here, you'll have more time to rest. But I don't feel tired at all. Ting unbuttoned his shirt and placed his jacket on the sofa. Only after he hugged Tongning would he feel at ease. Hurry and eat. You still have a tough battle to fight tomorrow, so you need to rest early, Tongning said with a hidden meaning. I've already arranged everything for you. Ting carried Tongning to the dining table and carefully placed her down. At this time, Bai Lihua was standing to one side. Of course, she did not dare to look at the couple sitting at the table because she was afraid of revealing her emotions. When it came to Tongning, she could control herself, but when it came to Ting, he was her son. How could she hold back her tears? Annie, you should get some rest. There's nothing else you need to do here. After hearing Tongning's words, Bai Lihua quickly replied, Don't worry. I'll go tidy up the kitchen. I won't disturb the two of you. That's not what I meant. Annie, Ting and I are simple people. We don't have many rules at home. Relax. I know you are a good person, so I will do my best to take care of you. After speaking, Bai Lihua left the dining room and returned to her guest room. At this time, she had to think of a way to cooperate with Tongning and make Hua Wenfeng pay the price. Not only did Hua Wenfeng bully her, she even bullied her son, daughter-in-law, and future grandchild. She deserved to die. Of course, as a vengeful person, Tongning had no intention of going easy on Hua Wenfeng. Everything would depend on the exciting show tomorrow. Would Hua Wenfeng win, or would Tongning be confident in her victory? The dining table had already returned to its usual warmth and tranquility. But, at this time, the food in Ting's mouth had an indescribable taste. What's wrong? Tongning asked. The taste isn't bad. It doesn't lose to you or me. Ting used these words to hide the emotions in his heart. Chapter 632. Hua Wenfeng's deal at Miro Hotel was scheduled to take place at 2 p.m., but Hua Wenfeng arrived half an hour early. Her motive was to check the hotel's facilities to see if she had been followed or had been secretly recorded. But, of course, there was none. In order to destroy Tongning, Hua Wenfeng was willing to pay any price. Even if she had to spend $30 million, she did not feel the slightest bit of heartache. Inside the hotel, Tongning's previous commercial from when she was a model was still on display. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw it, her lips curved into a contemptuous smile. She knew she was about to destroy everything Tongning had worked so hard for. Although it was going to be a good show, Tongning had no intention of leaving the house. So, she decided to stay at home and watch Hua Wenfeng's arrogance turn into a joke. Tongning, everything is ready, Fang Yu said over the phone. We have already connected to the biggest screen in the city. We can start the live broadcast at any time. I'm looking forward to a good show. After speaking, Tongning hung up the phone, put away her script, and picked up the remote control beside her. 2 p.m., the woman that Hua Wenfeng had arranged to meet up with soon appeared. However, she was covered up in disguise. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw her, she couldn't help but laugh. You don't need to be so nervous. Hai Rui is already investigating the evidence. The friend that I accidentally revealed has also gone into hiding overseas. So, I am currently trembling in fear and not knowing what to do. No matter what you are worried about, I can help you. Hua Wenfeng removed her sunglasses to show her respect and sincerity. Aren't you Tongning's mother-in-law? Are you Hua Wenfeng? Did you buy evidence of Tongning cheating to show to President Imo? The woman was obviously shocked as she immediately stood up. If I knew you were the one buying it, I wouldn't have come. Sit down first and let me finish. Hua Wenfeng grabbed the woman and pulled her to sit down. To be honest, I don't like Tongning either. So, I can't possibly go to Ting and expose you. I don't believe you, unless you can give me some evidence. After speaking, the woman pulled out her phone and pressed the record button. Are you brave enough to let me ask you a few questions? If you really answer me, then I can give you the photo. Hua Wenfeng looked deeply at the young artist in front of her. She could tell that the woman before her was easily frightened. After considering her options, she nodded her head and shrugged her shoulders. Go ahead and ask him. If you can't answer me, then there is no need for us to make a deal. After all, if word of this gets out, It will definitely cause irreversible consequences, and Hai Rui will never let me off the hook. If you're not willing to pay the price, then there's no need for me to take the risk, right? Obviously, the man was being cautious because of Hua Wenfeng's half-hearted attitude. Seeing how determined the woman was, Hua Wenfeng finally said with certainty, "Ask me anything and I will answer honestly. Firstly, you tried so hard to find me to get photos of Tongning having an affair. You couldn't possibly have done it just to verify the authenticity of the affair, right?" Hua Wenfeng thought for a moment and replied, "I want to show it to my son. I want him to know what kind of person Tongning is. After all, Tongning really cheated on me. I didn't wrongly accuse her." "Do you hate Tongning so much because Tongning hurt you?" The woman looked at Hua Wenfeng suspiciously. "I can't understand why you and Tongning have such a deep grudge against each other. Why are you willing to pay any price to find evidence of her cheating? Isn't Tongning your daughter-in-law?" Hua Wenfeng thought for a few seconds and suddenly realized something wasn't right. "Why do you want to know about this?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Imo. If I didn't have something that could protect me, I would never have given you the photos. I've been bitten too many times, so I have to be careful." The woman looked at Hua Wenfeng with disdain. "I'm sure you know about the industry and President Mo's capabilities. If he found out that I slandered his wife, he would never let me off easy." "How have you slandered Tongning?" "It's a fact that Tongning cheated," Hua Wenfeng emphasized. "Mrs. Imo, you sure are smart. You always change the topic. Please answer my questions seriously. Otherwise, I will never give you the photos today." Hua Wenfeng froze for a moment before she let out a laugh. "It's because Tongning is unfilial and even hurt me. I'm sure you all know about this." "Mrs. Imo, let's not beat around the bush. Everyone in the industry knows that Tongning doesn't hurt anyone." The woman obviously did not believe Hua Wenfeng. "If you have something to say, then just say it. I'm just a small artist that has lost my reputation. What else do I want? Knowing too much isn't good for you." After hearing this, the woman immediately stood up. "I didn't take such a big risk to make a deal with you just to listen to your nonsense. Since we can't come to an agreement, I think it's better for me to stay alive." "You're spouting nonsense. It's not worth anything to me. How do I know you won't betray me?" Hua Wenfeng sneered. "I gave you the photos. Betraying you is equivalent to betraying myself. But you're different. If you don't want to cooperate, then forget it. There's no need to waste everyone's time." After speaking, the woman tried to stand up. But Hua Wenfeng took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in her heart, and dragged the woman back. "I cut my arm myself." Hearing this answer, the woman sat back down in front of Hua Wenfeng in satisfaction. "Tongning didn't hurt me because there's no way she could hurt me." "Then, does the rumor of Tongning having an affair have anything to do with you?" "No," Hua Wenfeng replied firmly. "But it's not like I didn't know about it. Oldemo happened upon Tongning and Nzaheo discussing business in the living room that day. Who knew what they were doing so intimately? Of course, Oldemo wouldn't let Emoting suffer, so he exposed the matter. But he only told a few close friends and kept it within the industry. I never thought you would treat your daughter-in-law like this." The woman's voice contained a slight sense of ridicule. "This has nothing to do with you. All you need to do is give me the photos of Tongning having an affair." Hua Wenfeng was unhappy with the woman's mocking expression, but at this moment, she had a favor to ask. "Emoting doesn't need a wife like this. He deserves someone better to accompany him. Has Tongning ever wronged you?" "You're asking too many questions." Hua Wenfeng was a little unhappy. "That's the last question. I don't like her," Hua Wenfeng replied casually. In other words, she didn't do anything wrong. After speaking, the woman put down her phone and deleted the recording right in front of Hua Wenfeng. Chapter 633. Just now, I simply wanted to test you. Since you're willing to tell me the truth, I'm willing to make a deal with you." Seeing this, Hua Wenfeng laughed. "Young lady, you sure have a lot of tricks up your sleeve." But, in the end, I deleted it. The young artist put down her phone. Seeing this, Hua Wenfeng immediately relaxed. Of course, in a corner that she couldn't see, The small camera on the young artist's body had already captured everything that Hua Wenfeng had said. Even the slightest expression on her face was captured clearly. To be honest, I don't like actors, especially not smart ones. She is my daughter-in-law. Don't you know that Tongning is pregnant with your grandson? Hearing this question, Hua Wenfeng couldn't help but laugh. My son is the big boss of the entertainment industry. Do you think he would worry that no one will give birth to his child? You are quite disgusting, the young woman replied straightforwardly. Although I did something wrong, I know I asked for it. But the way you treated a pregnant woman was quite shameless. All right, enough nonsense. Where's the thing I want? The young woman looked deeply into Hua Wenfeng's eyes before she sent the photo on her phone to Hua Wenfeng. You can have it, but I don't want the money. I don't think I can spend this disgusting amount of money. Good luck. After speaking, the young woman stood up and left. As soon as Hua Wenfeng received the photo, she immediately sent it to Father Mo. So, this is your daughter-in-law. Hua Wenfeng had no idea that everything she said and did in front of the young artist that afternoon was being displayed on the biggest commercial screen in Beijing. Of course, from beginning to end, the video only showed Hua Wenfeng. The young artist was nowhere to be seen, so it protected her from the media's attacks. Now, everyone knew what kind of person Hua Wenfeng was and how much Tongning had suffered during this period of time. Only Hua Wenfeng was proud that she had obtained a photo of Tongning cheating. Damn, just because she looks down on Tongning, she treated a pregnant woman like this. How shameless, the netizens began to discuss. I wonder who this kind-hearted person is. If it wasn't for her, who knows how much more injustice Tongning would have to endure. It's so pitiful. Hua Wenfeng is the most evil mother-in-law I've ever met. Didn't President Mo's father say that Tongning cheated on him? I never thought that the rich and powerful were so messy. What a great show. I feel this was all planned by Tongning. But, to be fair, Hua Wenfeng was framed, and Hua Wenfeng was framed in this way. In an instant, because of the leaked video and Hua Wenfeng's true face, the people of Beijing finally understood the true meaning of a sinister person and how evil they could be. To Hua Wenfeng, the person that sacrificed herself also showed them the photo she sent to Hua Wenfeng. On the huge screen, there was indeed only Tongning and Zihao in the photo. But those with discerning eyes could immediately tell that something was wrong. This is photoshopped, okay? I have to hand it to Hua Wenfeng. Previously, someone even photoshopped Tongning as his wife. Was Tongning cheating on him too? Mrs. To Feng to if I was to, if I were of Tang, I ling to be to my to. Hua Wenfeng had no idea that the weather outside had changed. After speaking to Father Mo, she gave Ting a phone call. Xiao Ting, do you know what photo your father just received? What? Evidence of Tongning cheating. Evidence of Tongning and Zihao cheating. Hua Wenfeng yelled. Oh so? So you should quickly divorce this kind of woman. How can she be my son's wife? Miss Hua, are you referring to this photo? On the other side of the phone, Ting's lips curved upwards as he sent the original photo back. If Tongning's fans were observant enough, they would have noticed that the original man in the photo was Ting. This was a photo of Ting and Tongning. Ting directly sent the original photo back to Hua Wenfeng. After seeing it, Hua Wenfeng was confused. Xiao Ting, it can't be. It's not this photo. This photo is a photo of me and Tongning. Hua Wenfeng froze for a moment. All of a sudden, she didn't understand what Ting meant. Very confused, right? You'll understand everything in a moment. After speaking, Ting hung up the phone. At this time, Hua Wenfeng realized something must have changed, so she immediately left the hotel. But, on her way out, a passerby spotted her and immediately pointed at her. I can't believe this evil woman still dares to appear. A woman's heart is the most vicious. How shameless. I hope my mother-in-law doesn't learn from her. It seemed, all of a sudden, everyone was filled with ridicule and insults towards Hua Wenfeng. In fact, someone even threw an object at Hua Wenfeng. What a jerk. Hua Wenfeng didn't understand what was happening. She wanted to call a taxi and leave. But, as soon as she flagged down a taxi, the driver immediately refused to take her. Why is it you? I won't take you. Call another taxi. Can I ask why? Why? Go to Global Square and look at the big screen. I've lived for so long, yet I've come across someone as evil as you. It's quite an eye-opener. After speaking, the driver drove off. Hua Wenfeng's arm was injured, so she couldn't drive herself. But she couldn't get a taxi either, so all she could do was hide. Not long after, the entertainment news appeared online. Reporting on Hua Wenfeng's magnificent feat, it was all over the news, and there were even messages popping up. Hua Wenfeng's hands trembled as she watched her name appear on the screen of her phone. A moment later, she realized what had happened. So, this was what happened. Hua Wenfeng's body suddenly went limp as she sat on the cold ground. At this moment, the entire world realized how ugly she was inside. Hua Wenfeng lay on the ground in tears. She finally understood why the passers-by were pointing and gossiping. No, how did this happen? How did this happen? Shame and anger. It was a feeling of shame and anger. Hua Wenfeng was suddenly engulfed by this feeling. Hua Wenfeng lay motionless on the ground. It was Father Imo who found her after walking around the hotel. Wenfeng, get up, get up. Old Imo, take me to Tongning. Take me to Tongning. Hua Wenfeng lifted her head. Her eyes were red and filled with tears. Okay, I'll take you to Tongning right now. Father Imo carried Hua Wenfeng into the car, and the couple headed straight for Hyatt Regency. But, at a time like this, what was the point of looking for Tongning? Of course, Tongning had already expected this moment, so she said to Bai Lihua, "Auntie Bai, in a moment, stay in your room. No matter what happens, don't come out." Chapter 634. Is it because of the incident that was revealed on the big screen in Global Square this afternoon? Bai Lihua asked. Hua Wenfeng will definitely come looking for you. I can't leave you on your own. It's fine. Tongning smiled gently. I've already prepared myself. I won't let her bully me. Even if that's the case, I will still stay here and watch over you. Bai Lihua looked into Tongning's eyes with determination. Tongning looked at Bai Lihua and realized she had a strong desire to protect her. It was a desire that she couldn't resist. So, in the end, Tongning nodded her head. In that case, don't make a sound. Let me handle everything. Where's Imo Ting? Doesn't he know that Hua Wenfeng will come looking for you? Tongning smiled and pointed to the study room upstairs with her chin. He's upstairs. He came back as soon as the incident happened. He's currently looking at some contracts upstairs. That's good. Bai Lihua relaxed. At this time, Imo Ting's voice sounded from upstairs. Auntie Bai, go open the door. Bai Lihua was a little confused. She thought Hua Wenfeng had come to Hyatt Regency. But, as soon as she opened the door, she saw Feng Yu entering the living room with 4 bodyguards. He then turned and left. In a moment, if Tongning wants anything, help her get it. Don't tire her out. As her son, it wasn't that he couldn't be present when Hua Wenfeng and Tongning fought, but he knew that Tongning needed to vent her anger. So, it was best for him to stay away. As for the bodyguards, they were there to prevent Hua Wenfeng from getting physical. After all, his wife was currently pregnant, so it wasn't appropriate for her to have any physical contact with others. Hua Wenfeng is here to cause trouble. As her husband, shouldn't he step out to express his stance? Bai Lihua didn't understand Imo Ting's actions. If he doesn't show up, that is his attitude. He knows that I have a lot of anger in my heart. If he's around, I won't be able to enjoy myself. Tongning replied straightforwardly. Auntie Bai, if there's one person in this world that can understand my soul, then that person is my husband. He knows everything that I want. Okay. At this moment, Bai Lihua still didn't quite understand the meaning behind Tongning's words. So, she could only wait for Hua Wenfeng to appear before she could answer her question. It didn't take long before an anxious knock sounded from the front door. Of course, Tongning didn't need to open the door herself. However, the people in the living room were a little surprised to see Hua Wenfeng barging into the house, because Ms. Hua seemed to be doing things that didn't match her status at all times. Mom, why didn't you tidy up before coming over? Tongning asked calmly. Tongning, you're still pretending. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have lost my reputation. Hua Wenfeng wanted to pounce on Tongning, but she was held back by the bodyguard. I am your mother-in-law. How dare you treat me like this? Tongning, were you the one behind the incident outside? Father Mo questioned as he helped Hua Wenfeng up. Yes, it's me. Tongning asked Father Mo calmly. She had never treated the two men as rivals. But, so what? Aren't you all very clear? I am vicious and vengeful. You can't assume that just because I am pregnant, I don't have any fighting spirit. Just because I am your daughter-in-law, don't think that I will let you bully me. I'm not a person that likes to be taken advantage of. Tongning said calmly and casually, today, I simply destroyed Ms. Hua's reputation. If she doesn't admit defeat and wants to continue, I am more than happy to entertain her. Tongning, I hope you and the child in your stomach die a horrible death. Hua Wenfeng cursed as she pointed at Tongning. Take back your filthy hands, Tongning yelled. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. For some reason, perhaps it was because Hua Wenfeng had never seen Tongning like this before, but as soon as she heard Tongning's yell, she couldn't help but tremble. Take a good look at yourself. How are you behaving like a member of the Mo family? First, you slandered your daughter-in-law, then you tried to drive a wedge between us. Now, you've cursed your grandson and used the media to disregard the Mo family's reputation. You can continue to act like this, but don't even think about harming me and our child. Otherwise, the humiliation we have suffered today, tomorrow, I will return it to you 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Let's see who is more ruthless. Today, I can destroy your reputation. Tomorrow, I can make you beg for your life. Tongning, the way you treat your mother-in-law is intolerable. Father Mo stuttered in anger. Father Mo was so angry that he began to stutter. If you dare do anything to hurt Wenfeng again, I won't let you off. Father, take a good look at the woman in front of you. Is she really your wife? Tongning asked as she pointed to Hua Wenfeng with her chin. What do you mean? Tongning, stop spouting nonsense in front of Xiaoyuan. You cheap actress. As soon as Hua Wenfeng heard Tongning's words, she yelled in self-defense. As long as I, Hua Wenfeng, am alive, I will never acknowledge you as a member of the Mo family. Do I need your approval? Tongning asked. Or, are you so agitated because I said something I shouldn't have? You're being ridiculous. The truth will never be covered up. The world has its own justice. Tongning's words made everyone curious. Afterwards, she said to Father Mo, Father, you should keep your wife in check. When it comes to scheming, she is no match for me with her intellect. I've always been a playful person. If someone wants to risk their life against me, I will be able to hold them off for a while. You can hate me or curse me. I won't lose a single hair. But don't try to fight me. After hearing Tongning's warning, Father Mo wanted to step forward and slap her across the face. Unfortunately, he couldn't do it because Tongning was surrounded by bodyguards. I'm currently pregnant, so I don't want to make a big fuss. I'm giving you guys some face. But if you don't want to control yourself and continue to do ugly things, then I have no choice but to play along. What did Emoting say? Father Mo asked angrily. He no longer wanted to listen to Tongning. Did you think Emoting would still want to talk to you? Father Mo remained silent for a few seconds before he glanced upstairs. He knew Emoting was home, but just like Tongning said, he didn't want to see him and Hua Wenfeng. So, Father Mo swallowed his anger and prepared to leave with Hua Wenfeng. But Hua Wenfeng suddenly broke free from Father Mo's embrace and approached Tongning. Were you trying to tell me that I'm a fake and that I'm not Emoting's mother? Chapter 635. Did I say anything? Tongning asked casually. Let me tell you, you slut. I will find evidence and make you pay for what you've done today. Hua Wenfeng's eyes turned red. It seemed she was quite angry. Of course, this made Tongning even more suspicious. If she didn't have a guilty conscience, why would she react in such a way? I'll wait for your evidence. Hua Wenfeng glared at Tongning. She then turned to look at the study room upstairs. I, Hua Wenfeng, have given birth to this unfilial son for nothing. My husband doesn't have cruel and unscrupulous parents. Tongning lifted her chin. In terms of aura, she naturally suppressed Hua Wenfeng. Father Imo scoffed as he led Hua Wenfeng out of Tongning and Imo Ting's home. Afterwards, Tongning took a deep breath and sat down on the sofa. Bai Lihua immediately ran over to help her. "Are you okay?" Tongning gently shook her head. A moment later, the two women heard Imo Ting's voice coming from the study room upstairs. They then saw his silhouette at the door. "Auntie Bai, from now on, I want these 4 bodyguards to stand guard outside the house at all times. You will be in charge of deploying them. As long as someone comes knocking on the door, don't let them in." "Yes, Mr. Imo." After speaking, Imo Ting headed downstairs and pulled Tongning into his embrace. "Have you vented your anger?" Tongning quietly leaned into Imo Ting's embrace as she listened to his steady heartbeat. "In this world, I think you are the only person that would allow me to bully my parents like this." "Xiao Ning, someone was the one that went overboard first. You were simply protecting yourself. You didn't do anything wrong," Bai Lihua said from behind Tongning. "This world has always been a place where the weak are bullied and the strong are feared. If you don't hold back, she will never stop attacking unless she achieves her goal." "Your words are my words." Imo Ting did not say anything else. He simply said calmly, "Whatever you want to do is what I want to do." "You." Tongning smiled helplessly. "Even if I were to kill someone, you would probably bury the body for me. I won't allow anyone to bully you." This was something that had been true from the moment they got married. Tongning lifted her head and looked into Imo Ting's eyes. His pupils were like a vast sea of stars, so bright that she couldn't take her eyes off them. "I'm feeling a lot better. Go back to work. I have something I want to talk to Auntie Bai about." Tongning gently pushed against Imo Ting's chest. Imo Ting placed a kiss on Tongning's lips and covered her with the blanket again. He then gestured for the bodyguards to guard the door, leaving Tongning and Bai Lihua alone. After Imo Ting left, Tongning looked at Bai Lihua and asked, "Auntie Bai, have you ever experienced injustice?" Hearing Tongning's question, Bai Lihua was immediately reminded of the 2 people that had just left. It's all in the past. It's not worth mentioning. Have you ever thought of revenge? I've thought about it for many years, but Xiaoxing is always by my side. Bai Lihua replied straightforwardly. All right, then let me know when you feel like talking about it. Xiaoning, I have a presumptuous request. Bai Lihua took the opportunity to ask Tongning, when I miss Xiaoxing, can you let her into Hyatt Regency? With the mention of Chen Xingyan, Tongning immediately thought of the child that Zihao protected at Hua Jingjing's birthday party. The child wasn't even 20 years old and was mischievous, but she wasn't annoying. So, Tongning smiled and nodded her head. I trust that you know what to do. That child has always been out of line since she was young. She has never been restrained by society. So, if Zihao provoked her, would it be a blessing or a curse? After Hua Wenfeng followed Father Imo into the house, she crazily swept everything onto the floor. All that could be heard was the sound of utensils shattering. After quite some time, Father Imo approached her and pulled her into his embrace. Forget it, Wenfeng. We can't afford to offend that woman. If worst comes to worst, we will never see each other again. No way. Hua Wenfeng yelled. Didn't you hear what she said? She said I'm a fake and that I'm not Imo Ting's mother. She was just spouting nonsense. Did you take her seriously? I will go to the hospital tomorrow to do a DNA test. I want her to know that Imo Ting wants to get rid of me as his mother. He must be dreaming. Father Imo understood that Hua Wenfeng was still angry, so he did not try to stop her. After she calmed down, Father Imo carried her into the bedroom and placed her on the bed. Let's pretend we never had this son. Old Imo, you need to believe in my innocence. I can't allow her to slander me like this. No matter how much hatred she has towards me, my relationship with Imo Ting as mother and son isn't something that she can simply erase. Okay, let's go to the hospital tomorrow. We will do a DNA test. No one can slander my wife. There was no doubt that Father Imo doted on Hua Wenfeng. So, it was understandable that he was tricked by her. Plus, Hua Wenfeng insisted on going to the hospital for a DNA test. So, the hatred he had for Tongning was deeply rooted in his heart. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. A DNA test? Didn't Hua Wenfeng have a guilty conscience? Meanwhile, Bai Lihua still remembered the words that Tongning had said to Hua Wenfeng. Had Tongning discovered something? Of course, Tongning had dealt a harsh blow to Hua Wenfeng this time. So, everyone in Beijing hated Hua Wenfeng, so they naturally kept an eye on her every move. This would definitely make Tongning's life a lot easier from now on. After all, with so many eyes watching over her, the chances of Hua Wenfeng acting recklessly would be very low. Although Hua Wenfeng's reputation has been completely destroyed and it's a little pitiful, I must say, Tongning, you are really satisfying. Plus, the strange thing is, no one dragged Boss into this matter. Boss, staying out of it is indeed the best choice. Seeing the smile on Long Jie's face, Tongning also let out a gentle laugh. You've been visiting me a lot lately. Is it because Lu Che isn't home and you're bored? Actually, I'm here because I have an idea, Long Jie said as she approached Tongning. Lu Che and I are both fine, but we just can't get pregnant. So, I've decided to have a test tube baby. But, I'm afraid. That's why I came to ask you if it's possible. Tongning knew that Long Jie really wanted a child, so she wasn't surprised at all. Have you discussed this with Lu Che? I'm waiting for him to come home, Long Jie replied. I'm just unsure, so I wanted to talk to someone about it. It's not a bad thing. I just think it's a little strange. Long Jie felt a little uneasy. Lu Che and I are both fine, but we just can't get pregnant. In the end, we had to resort to this method. It's hard for me to get used to it. Chapter 636. You don't have the final say in this matter. You should ask Lu Che first, Tongning suggested. After all, this is a matter between you and your wife. You shouldn't always think that you can make all the decisions on your own. However, after trying all methods and seeing no results, I think it's feasible. After receiving Tongning's approval, Long Jie clapped her hands and said, Let's do it. Sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop on you too. I simply overheard you talking about IVF. Does Miss Long want a baby? Behind them, Bai Lihua placed a teacup in front of Long Jie as she scanned her body. Is there a problem? Annie Bai, does this mean you know about this? Long Jie leaned back on the sofa. She was curious about Bai Lihua. Perhaps. I can answer your questions. After all, Bai Lihua was Imo Ting's real mother. So, it wasn't a lie that she researched biotechnology. Since that was the case, she was naturally familiar with genetics. You can show me your test results. After hearing this, Tongning and Long Jie suddenly had a new understanding of the disfigured woman in front of them. Okay, I'll bring them to you in a moment. If Annie Bai can really help me, I will be extremely grateful. In reality, Qin Xingyan had a strange personality, and she also knew a few things that a quack doctor would know. So, she wasn't surprised that Bai Lihua knew about this. Long Jie simply wanted to give it a try. After all, they weren't going to get tested by a proper doctor. So, she didn't have high hopes for Bai Lihua. But, having hope was better than having no hope at all. So, Long Jie quickly handed her and Lu Che's test results to Bai Lihua. Annie Bai, it's all here. Bai Lihua held the report in her hands and looked at it carefully. After comparing the results, she said to Long Jie, according to the report, you and Mr. Lu are indeed healthy. Everything is normal. Then, why did we? Don't panic. Bai Lihua tried to calm Long Jie down. There are still a lot of things that cannot be explained in the medical field. As for infertility, there are a lot of people like you who can't find a reason for it. In that case, did the hospital tell you that the environment can affect pregnancy? What? What do you mean? Long Jie obviously didn't think about the environment. Miss Long, you and Mr. Lu should move. Bai Lihua seemed to have suddenly received an answer as she smiled at Long Jie. When it comes to infertility, one of the main reasons is due to physical and chemical reasons and environmental pollution. The two of you have strong bodies. Why don't you try a change of environment? There's such a thing? But the previous hospitals didn't tell me. You all went for the checkup alone, and your bodies are fine. Most hospitals either ask you to do IVF or let nature take its course. Many doctors will ignore these seemingly secondary reasons. Long Jie's heart was suddenly filled with hope as she looked at Bai Lihua in a new light. I never thought our Auntie Bai would be so amazing. Actually, Tongning noticed that Bai Lihua was quite knowledgeable when it came to medicinal cuisine. At the very least, when Bai Lihua took care of her current meals, she never had to look up information to understand the attributes of the food. She simply knew how to make it the most nutritious. Go back and give it a try. If it works, you can thank me again. Long Jia excitedly pulled out her phone and gave Lu Che a phone call. Meanwhile, Tongning looked at Auntie Bai with a serious expression. I never thought Auntie Bai was so good at hiding things. Not really. I learned it in the past. Xiao Xing was injured when he was young, and he practiced martial arts, so I decided to learn it. Tongning nodded her head and did not continue asking. But Bai Lihua's skills weren't something that could be learned casually. At least, Tongning was certain that Bai Lihua was very professional. In that case, your face, Bai Lihua understood what Tongning was trying to say. She understood why Tongning didn't choose to undergo plastic surgery to restore her appearance. My injuries are too severe and I can't recover. If I want to remove my mask, I will need at least 4 surgeries. Even if I manage to get it back, my face won't look natural. In fact, it might even look more frightening. So, I gave up, Bai Lihua explained in seriousness. Over the years, I've been overseas a few times, but I'm sorry, Auntie Bai. It's fine. Bai Lihua smiled. But under her mask, her skin seemed to be stretched taut because of this smile. Too much time had passed. All that was left were scars. But this hatred and vengeance was etched deep into her heart. The next day, the production crew of The Savage Wars gave Zhehao a phone call. They were very satisfied with Chen Xingyan's performance and wanted to sign her as one of the villains. It seemed, the ruthless way she hit people left a deep impression on the interviewers. So, the production crew contacted Zhehao and requested him to bring Chen Xingyan along when they went to the US. Instead of securing a main character, they secured the female villain. Zhehao looked at Chen Xingyan in the distance. He felt this woman was quite unbelievable. It was bad enough that she acted casually, but was her life also so casual? And don't look at me like that. Over the past 2 days, Chen Xingyan had gotten herself a video game console. Instead of playing with cash, she insisted on playing something that was hard to find on the streets. Are you going to act as the #1 villain? It's not like you don't know that I can't face the camera, but during the audition, you were surrounded by at least 10 video games. I was there to beat someone up. I had no intention of going for the audition. Chen Xingyan rolled her eyes. Plus, why would I go overseas? All I know is how to say that I'm not gay. Do you want me to embarrass myself? You can stop pretending. Zhehao clearly saw Chen Xingyan speaking to the interviewer in English that day. Although her English was a little lacking, she wasn't completely clueless. Hey, there's no need for you to turn me into an international superstar. I think I'm doing great right now. There's no need for me to change. Don't you have any goals in life? Of course I do. I like excitement, Chen Xingyan replied in seriousness. I like the impossible. So, don't ask me to act as a villain. I've already experienced that feeling. I'm not interested. At this moment, Zhehao's heart was in turmoil. He couldn't understand why he had signed Chen Xingyan to torture himself. What are you living for? Chapter 637. Chen Xingyan pointed her middle finger at Zhehao in disdain. Seeing this, Zhehao was immediately enraged as he walked over and smashed Chen Xingyan's game console into smithereens. You don't act like a living person. What a waste of resources. Chen Xingyan. Zhehao had no intention of continuing the conversation with Chen Xingyan. He turned around and said, in a couple of days, another artist will be moving in. When that time comes, you guys should take care of each other. I'm not used to living with people I don't know well. Fine. Give me $20 million first. Otherwise, you can create some value for me. Chen Xingyan. Since you don't want to go to The Savage Wars, I will get someone else to do it. If you don't want to go, there are plenty of people who are willing to. So, you can continue being a stunt double. After speaking, Zhehao turned around and left the apartment, leaving Chen Xingyan all alone with a stuffy chest. She had the urge to punch someone, and Zaheo was, after all, a top manager in the past. So, when it came to dealing with a stubborn and mischievous person like Qin Xingyan, he naturally had his methods. However, this little brat had no idea of her value and was still wasting her youth. If she had entered this industry unconsciously, why had she been an extra for so many years? A stunt double. Did she really like this dangerous and unrewarding profession that much? Hua Wenfeng was making a fuss about getting a DNA test done. So, early in the morning, she called Father Imo over to get a sample from Imo Ting. At that time, Tongning was still resting. So, the person who opened the door was naturally Bai Lihua. The two had never looked at each other in private before. For some reason, when Father Imo looked into Bai Lihua's eyes, he felt there was a complicated look in her eyes that made him feel suspicious. "I've seen you since yesterday." "You are?" "I am a servant that Tongning hired," Bai Lihua replied with her head lowered. After answering, she turned around. "Have we met somewhere before?" Father Imo asked naturally. "No," Bai Lihua replied firmly. If she had a choice, she would rather they had never met. "In that case, can you give me a sample of Imo Ting's hair?" "Sorry, no." Bai Lihua's tone was a lot colder. Father Imo glanced at Bai Lihua and thought that she wanted some benefits. So, he pulled out some money and handed it to her. "Is this enough?" Bai Lihua looked at the cash in Father Mo's hands. At this moment, her eyes were filled with ridicule. Although many years had passed, the man in front of him did not know his real wife and colluded with a swindler to frame his son and daughter-in-law. Every time Bai Lihua thought of this, she couldn't help but feel a sense of ridicule. Nowadays, DNA tests can be faked. If you really wanted to prove something, you would have to go to the DNA test center with Mr. Imo. Who would believe a one-sided test? "What do you mean?" All of a sudden, Father Imo furrowed his brows. "Did you think my wife would create a fake DNA test to fool others?" "I'm just stating the possibilities. He is indeed one of Tongning's people. He is wholeheartedly helping her." Seeing that Bai Lihua was picking on Hua Wenfeng, Father Mo's tone turned harsh. "Why don't you remove your mask? Don't tell me you're the same as that performer. Shameful." "It's no wonder. That performer's heart is as evil as a snake. Anyone that she keeps by her side is obviously a jackal of the same tribe. We are all evil people. Only your wife is innocent. You and I both know who is right and who is wrong," Father Imo said angrily. "Since you are just a servant, then get out of my way. At least, I am still Imo Ting's father." Bai Lihua did not respond. They had been married for so many years, yet this was the situation they were in. So, she did not want to continue arguing with Father Imo. Instead, she gestured to the bodyguards with her chin. If they didn't chase Father Imo away now, what were they waiting for? The bodyguards immediately stepped forward and grabbed onto Father Imo. But before he could be thrown out of the house, Tongning's voice could be heard. "Auntie Bai, give it to him." "But, give it to him." Tongning walked over to the sofa and said in a calm tone, "Since Father wants it, I naturally have to give it to him." What was so trustworthy about a DNA test done by Hua Wenfeng alone? Bai Lihua thought to herself. It seemed, even if she revealed her identity right now, Father Imo would only speak up for that woman. So, she shouldn't place too much hope in him. So, a DNA test was a must. Since Father Imo insisted and Tongning agreed, Bai Lihua had no choice but to head to the bathroom. A moment later, she handed Father Imo a toothbrush. Since Hua Wenfeng liked to do a DNA test so much, then she was going to let her do it. Tongning watched as Bai Lihua handed Father Imo the sample. But, after Father Imo left, she said, "Auntie Bai, you didn't give him Ting's sample." "I gave him my toothbrush," Bai Lihua replied straightforwardly. Tongning looked deeply into Bai Lihua's eyes. She did not say a word, but deep down, she couldn't help but praise Bai Lihua's actions. In that case, it looks like we're in for a good show. Although Father Imo had retrieved the sample, he was still thinking about what Bai Lihua had said to him. "Wenfeng, do you know what Tongning's servant said to me? She said that even if we were to do a DNA test, no one would believe us. Because, with the advancement of technology, DNA can be faked." After hearing this, Hua Wenfeng wanted to smash the house up again, That slut, Tongning, deserves to die a horrible death. Even her servant is so well trained. I'll immediately get someone to take the sample for testing and film the entire process. I need to prove my innocence. Seeing Hua Wenfeng's confident expression, Father Imo immediately hugged her. You didn't need to do this. I trust you no matter what. Old Imo, I'm already so old, yet I'm still being treated like this by my daughter-in-law. Just the thought of it makes me angry. Now, I've even been ruined by her. Does this mean that I'm going to live the rest of my life in fear? Don't be afraid. I will definitely get justice for you. A DNA test and a film to ensure the authenticity of the results. Do you really think that Ms. Hua won't tamper with the DNA? That night, Tongning asked calmly as she lay in Imo Ting's arms. However, there was a hint of a smile in her voice. Filming the entire process. It seems she is very confident in herself. Once the results are out, we will know whether she is fair or not. After all, they both knew that the sample that Hua Wenfeng took did not belong to Imo Ting. If that was the case, Hua Wenfeng would still receive a 99% positive result. All they could say was, they were completely convinced. If I think about it carefully, it will be a little funny, Tongning said as she waited for Hua Wenfeng to reveal the results. Chapter 638. Over the next couple of days, Hua Wenfeng took what she thought was Imo Ting's sample to the hospital's forensics department for testing. In front of Father Imo, she requested the forensics department to film the entire process and not let the sample leave the camera lens. Mrs. Imo, we are indeed unable to comply with your request, the forensics department replied. Seeing Hua Wenfeng's determination, Father Imo simply treated it like a mother that had been forced into a corner. So, his heart ached for Hua Wenfeng's desire to regain her innocence. Wenfeng, it's been hard on you, Father Imo comforted. If I had known you would give birth to such an unfilial son, I wouldn't have stopped you from getting rid of him. Now, he has become so lawless and has even found himself a poisonous wife. Thinking of this, Father Imo felt a little frustrated. So, he pulled out his phone and gave Elder Imo a phone call. He then told Father Imo everything that Tongning had done during this period of time. Father, Wenfeng and I have been forced into a corner by this woman. If you don't step out and teach us a lesson, the Imo family is going to be destroyed by her. Elder Imo wasn't retarded, nor was he deaf or blind. Although he didn't personally witness what had happened to the Imo family during this period of time, he was well aware of it, especially the incident that had appeared on the big screen in Global Square 2 days ago. He knew better than anyone what kind of person Tongning was. When will the results of the DNA test be out? Elder Imo remained silent for a moment. Originally, he wanted to stay out of the matter, but since things had already gotten to this point, if he didn't step out and say a word, it wouldn't be right. The hospital said it would be the day after tomorrow at the earliest. In that case, let's do it the day after tomorrow. I will visit Hyatt Regency then. It had been a long time since he had seen Tongning and his great-grandson. Elder Imo thought to himself. Father Imo had no idea what Elder Imo was thinking. He simply assumed that Elder Imo was still protecting his son. But he had no idea that Elder Imo had put in a lot of effort to understand Tongning's personality. So what if his own son was present? Elder Imo would only help the side that he felt was right. Otherwise, if both sides were close to each other, how could he settle the score? Wenfeng, I've already called Dad. He will definitely help us. Hua Wenfeng nodded her head. She had forgotten that the Imo family still had Elder Imo plus. Elder Imo was extremely protective of his own people. How could Tongning have a good ending after stirring up so much trouble? The day after tomorrow, let's just wait and watch the show. And Zaheo had mentioned that a newcomer would be arriving at the apartment in the next 2 days. At first, Chen Xingyan thought he was just joking. But who would have thought? Early that morning, a luxurious van arrived at the apartment. It was a girl the same age as her who had just won the National Youth MMA Championship. From the sound of it, the two girls were evenly matched. But this treatment was worlds apart. The apartment was split into 2 floors. She lived on the first floor, which was the guest room, while the master bedroom was upstairs. Sometimes, When Qin Xingyan was unhappy, she would go upstairs to lie down. The furnishings in her room were on a completely different level. Originally, she thought Nzaheo had left it for her so she could stay there from time to time. Who would have thought? Nzaheo actually allowed the other party to move in. Are you Qin Xingyan? Hello, I am Annie. From now on, we will be roommates. The woman wasn't as tall as Qin Xingyan, but her figure was definitely well-trained. However, Qin Xingyan didn't like the woman's smile. She couldn't tell if it was real or fake. So, she did not extend her hand. Instead, she crossed her arms and sat down on the sofa. Hello? Annie did not respond. But Annie's assistant was furious as she questioned Qin Xingyan. Who do you think you are? Our Annie is greeting you because she thinks highly of you. Can't you tell that Mr. N values Annie more? You better not provoke me, Qin Xingyan warned as she picked up the repaired game console without turning her head. I heard you were successful in your audition and had the opportunity to play the villain in an American film, but you rejected it. I'm sorry, Mr. N has already given this opportunity to our Annie. The assistant was not afraid of death as she threw herself at Qin Xingyan. Not only is she afraid of the camera, she is only a stunt double. Our Annie has never been a stunt double. What's the point? Making a wedding dress for someone else? From what I can see, you are only fit to make a wedding dress for someone else. That's enough, little five. Don't speak nonsense. Only after he finished speaking did he ask them to stop talking nonsense. Qin Xingyan was used to these methods of ridicule, so he just smiled coldly. She's being rude to you. The assistant called Little Five yelled. It's okay. Mr. N gave Xingyan's resources to me. It's natural for her to feel uncomfortable. You are just too kind. Qin Xingyan continued to play with her joystick. She did not throw a tantrum because Nzaheo was the main culprit behind all of this. Afterwards, Qin Xingyan gave Nzaheo a phone call, but his phone was turned off. But was Qin Xingyan the one that was at a disadvantage? It didn't take long before night arrived. Qin Xingyan was cooking in the kitchen when Nzaheo personally visited and took Annie out for dinner with the excuse that he was taking her to see the director. Qin Xingyan put down her bowl and chopsticks. It would be a lie to say that she felt comfortable. But, at this time, Bai Lihua suddenly gave Qin Xingyan a phone call. Xing'er, do you want to come to Hyatt Regency? Mom will cook something delicious for you. Yes, Qin Xingyan emphasized with a wrong tone. It didn't take long before Qin Xingyan hailed a cab and arrived at Hyatt Regency. Bai Lihua was already waiting for her at the entrance. Although Qin Xingyan still felt a little uncomfortable about entering someone else's home, it was still better than staying in the apartment. Xiao Ning and Mr. Mo are both very nice people. You don't need to feel awkward. Okay. Qin Xingyan lowered her head and followed Bai Lihua into Hyatt Regency. At this moment, Tongning was sitting in the living room reading through her script. As soon as she spotted Qin Xingyan standing behind Bai Lihua, she couldn't help but say gently, I've long heard from your mother that you are a mischievous spirit. You don't need to act so serious. I don't eat people up. Qin Xingyan lifted her head. As soon as she saw Tongning, the legend of Beijing and the person that everyone loved to talk about, she couldn't help but feel a sense of respect. So, she scratched her head awkwardly. I'm not used to it. Tongning let out a gentle laugh as she lowered her head and continued to flip through the script in her hands. At this time, Qin Xingyan approached her and knelt down beside her. Do you need a stunt double? Xing'er. Bai Lihua yelled. Qin Xingyan had never felt that she was inferior to others. She naturally treated Tongning as a senior. This made communication easier and more comfortable for Tongning. So, she asked back, isn't it good to follow Nzaheo? Chapter 639. Qin Xingyan did not say a word. She simply looked at Tongning with a wronged look in her eyes. Xing'er, get up first. It's fine, Auntie Bai. I've actually liked her from the start, Tongning replied straightforwardly. She had never been biased when it came to judging people because she believed in magnetism. If two people were attracted to each other, they would definitely be fated to be friends. So, Tongning did not feel that Qin Xingyan should follow any rules. Qin Xingyan did not respond as she sat down on the sofa. Seeing this, Tongning did not pursue the matter any further. She simply replied, I don't need a stunt double. Why not? Because I've always done things on my own. But it's very dangerous. And Zaheo was confused. Did Tongning need to put on a show for others to see? Firstly, you should know better than anyone that being a stunt double is a very dangerous job. Your body and life are not guaranteed. I don't care if others need it or not, but I'm certain that I don't need it, Tongning replied in seriousness. Secondly, the role belongs to you and the script belongs to you. Only when you step into the role yourself will you know how it feels and how you feel. There are some things that can't be imagined. If a character doesn't complete a scene on their own, then don't you feel that their life is incomplete? After hearing Tongning's words, Chun Xingyan fell silent for a few seconds. Although she felt that Tongning was being too serious, she liked it. I don't like people that follow the rules. So, can you tell me why you want to be my stunt double? Chun Xingyan thought for a moment. She was used to being shameless. Why would she need to protect that bitch's reputation? So, Chun Xingyan explained everything that Zaheo had done to Tongning and Bai Lihua. He included how he smashed her video game console and how he found a newcomer to bully her. He told her everything. After hearing everything, Tongning felt that Zaheo didn't seem like someone like that. But, on the other hand, she wasn't immune to things like this. She couldn't stand to see someone she knew being bullied, even if the person that had bullied her was her good friend. Since you can't continue, then don't do it, Bai Lihua replied. But that jerk has written it in the contract. If I break it, I will have to pay him $20 million. Are you worse than Annie? Tongning asked straightforwardly. She didn't care if it was $20 million or not. Are you kidding me? I've been in the entertainment industry since I was 7. Chun Xingyan was obviously unconvinced. Plus, when it came to martial arts, Annie only learned mixed martial arts, yet she knew all sorts of tricks. If they were to really fight, she would never admit defeat. Then why do you bear it? If you are really as fearless as you say, then you shouldn't let the people that look down on you live a good life. To put it bluntly, I don't like people robbing me. Even if I don't like it, it depends on whether I want it or not. If it was me, if I really didn't want to go abroad, then I wouldn't go. But the opportunity, I'm sorry, I don't want it, but it won't be yours. After speaking, Tongning paused for a moment and looked at Chun Xingyan again. In this industry, people always support the strong and step on the weak. Even if you are only a stunt double, you should be the best stunt double. Only then will you have the right to say no to others. When that time comes, even if you don't agree with Zaheo and don't want to follow his arrangements, even if he sends someone else to anger you, you don't have to care. Chun Xingyan listened to Tongning quietly. From what she knew, Tongning was a quiet person that relied on righteousness to get to where she was. Especially at the beginning, when Tongning mentioned her opinion of stunt doubles. At that time, Chun Xingyan felt that Tongning was a normal person. But, after hearing the rest of her words, why did Chun Xingyan feel like Tongning was a little cool? Above all, Tongning's words ignited a fire in her heart. In the entertainment industry, defeating the unknown is exciting. Chun Xingyan understood what Tongning meant. If she wanted to look down on something, she needed to make it look up to it first. Seeing that Chun Xingyan understood, Tongning did not say anything else. She simply asked, "Did you say that Zaheo smashed your video game console?" "I have the latest German video game console here. There are only 2 in the entire world. One is a test product and the other is at home. You can take it home in a moment as a gift." Chun Xingyan looked at Tongning as they smiled at each other. "Is it fun?" "I'm not sure if it's fun or not, but I'm sure it won't be broken." "In that case, I'll gladly accept." Chun Xingyan did not hold back. Seeing that the two were like old friends, Bai Lihua felt a lot more at ease. Originally, she was afraid that Chun Xingyan would anger Tongning, but she was overthinking things. Tongning was good at manipulating people's hearts. No matter what kind of person stood in front of her, they would have no choice but to lower their heads. Chun Xingyan wasn't stupid. In fact, she was extremely smart. She knew why Tongning had given her a video game console. So, while Zaheo was driving Annie home, Chun Xingyan was sitting in the living room playing with Tongning's video game console. And Zaheo was annoyed. "You got another one?" Chun Xingyan replied arrogantly, "Why do you care? It looks fun." Annie was envious and wanted to fight for Chun Xingyan's favor. She wanted Qin Xingyan to know her place. So, she pretended to be weak and spoke with a hint of desire. I'll give it to you another day. And Zaheo was used to seeing fights between artists, so he naturally understood Annie's motive. But Qin Xingyan smiled as she crossed her arms. I'm sorry, but there's only one in the entire world. Don't tell me Missin wants the one in my hands? Mr. N, seeing that Zaheo was serious, Qin Xingyan replied, I'm sorry, Tongning gave it to me. Why don't you ask her for it? Hearing this, Zaheo clenched his teeth. This brat. She finally knew how to be arrogant. Most importantly, what was Tongning getting involved in this? Tongning? Do you know Tongning? Annie's eyes burned with jealousy. Go get some rest. It's getting late. And Zaheo reminded Annie. He felt it was time to stop playing such childish games. However, as soon as the two women turned around, Qin Xingyan suddenly stopped them. Wait, what is it? And Zaheo had already reached the door. But as soon as he heard Annie's voice, he turned around. I'll take the script for The Savage Wars, Qin Xingyan said as she raised her eyebrows and looked at Annie. Qin Xingyan raised her eyebrows and looked at Annie. Seeing Annie's unhappy expression, she added, Tongning is right. There's no reason not to take something that belongs to you. Chapter 640. Heir. Xingyan, you've already rejected him. Now that you're accepting it again, it doesn't seem right. Annie was extremely timid in front of Zaheo. In fact, she even stuttered a little, pretending to be weak, especially when a beautiful woman was pretending to be weak. Would most men not be able to stand the pitiful expression on their faces and give in to her? But when it came to people like Zaheo and Ting, only they knew how disgusting a woman like this was. Especially since Annie thought that Qin Xingyan would tolerate it for the sake of her pride. However, Qin Xingyan wasn't the type to let her pride get the better of her. She was willful and arrogant. She did whatever she wanted. Her pride had nothing to do with what she did. On top of that, she was now able to enjoy Annie's acting. So Qin Xingyan's heart was filled with excitement. She thought to herself, listening to Tongning was indeed the right thing to do. What's not right about it? I have $10 on me. Sometimes, when it takes up space, I'll just put it somewhere else and say that I don't want it anymore. But, just because of that, doesn't that mean the $10 isn't mine anymore? Qin Xingyan used a hooligan analogy. But, in Zaheo's mind, this analogy was not valid. But, Mr. N has already spoken to the producer that he wants to replace me. He can always say he wants to replace me. After all, I was the one that was originally booked for this role. Plus, if he can't even do something like this, then what's the point of being a manager? Why don't you let me do it instead? Qin Xingyan rolled her eyes at the two men. As soon as Qin Xingyan said this, even Zaheo was speechless. This brat was merciless when it came to scolding others. Mr. N. Annie couldn't win against Qin Xingyan, so she quickly looked for help. She was certain that Zaheo would help her. Zaheo originally wanted to leave, but after hearing Qin Xingyan's words, he suddenly decided not to leave. He turned around and sat down on the sofa. That's right, Qin Xingyan is right. Annie was shocked, Mr. N. But Annie's words aren't unreasonable. Qin Xingyan, the resources originally belong to you, but the opportunity belongs to everyone. If you say you don't want it, the opportunity will naturally slip away. This is something that neither you, Annie, nor I can control. So, it's not appropriate for you to use your money as an analogy. Qin Xingyan wished she could bite Zaheo to death. Annie couldn't help but relax a little. So, since you said that you don't want to be a stunt double even if you die, then as your manager, it's only reasonable for me to optimize my resources. So, I will still make a phone call to the production crew. As for who they choose in the end, it's not up to you or me to decide. Qin Xingyan glared at Zaheo but didn't say another word. She put down the game controller and turned to return to her room. Damn man, stinking man, go to hell. Qin Xingyan treated the pillow as Zaheo. Apart from punching and kicking it, she also threw it on the ground and stomped on it. You're heartless, so I'm heartless. Go get some rest. Zaheo said to Annie after seeing Qin Xingyan return to her room. Thank you, Mr. N. Annie thought Zaheo was trying to help her, so her smile turned even sweeter. However, behind her back, Nzaheo had already given the production crew a phone call and informed them that Chen Xingyan had accepted the role and agreed to play the villain of the Savage Wars. He understood Chen Xingyan's temper, so he did not mention to the production crew that Chen Xingyan had rejected the role. Plus, the person that Annie went to see was not the director of the Savage Wars. From start to finish, he simply wanted to provoke Chen Xingyan. But it was obvious that Chen Xingyan was more willing to listen to Tongning due to her rebellious nature. Although it had nothing to do with his efforts, at least the outcome was good. This brat was currently in her room. She must be itching to tear him apart and eat him alive. The next morning, Chen Xingyan stepped out of her room after a good night's sleep. To her surprise, she saw Annie's assistant, Little Five, playing with a poodle in the living room. The dog was very lively as it ran around the living room. In the end, Little Five caught up to the dog and placed it on top of Chen Xingyan's game console. Chen Xingyan walked over to Little Five and glared at her coldly. Little Five knew that the game console belonged to Chen Xingyan, but she felt that Chen Xingyan was lying and that it wasn't a gift from Tongning. So, she decided to bully him with the dog. Chen Xingyan did not say a word. He simply pulled out his phone and made a phone call in front of Little Five. After the call connected, he pressed the speaker button. Tongning Jia, are you still resting? I'm reading a script. What's wrong? Tongning asked. Can you tell me how much the game console you gave me is worth and where I can get it repaired? It was gifted to me by a friend of Ting's. It's a German handmade game console, and it's the latest product from a famous video game company. I heard it's worth over $3 million. It's impossible to get it repaired in China, so it needs to be sent directly to Germany, Tongning replied honestly. Of course, as soon as Little Five heard this, her entire body began to tremble. Not only did Chen Xingyan know Tongning, he had actually gifted her a game console. And this game console was worth over $3 million. Okay, thank you, Ningjia. Sorry to disturb your rest. After speaking, Chen Xingyan hung up the phone. Before Little Five could react, she took a photo of the toy standing on top of the game console. Xiao Wu immediately threw the dog on the ground and stuttered. What? What are you doing? Evidence collection. Chen Xingyan said straightforwardly as she gestured to Little Five to look at the controller. Haven't you noticed that your dog has already bitten through my controller? You heard what Tongning said just now. This console is worth around $3 million, and there's no way to repair it in China. Tell me, what should we do now? This. Little Five was so scared that his face turned pale. He stammered that no. There are photos in my phone. Do you think you can still deny it? Little Five was so shocked that she immediately knelt on the floor and begged, Miss Chun, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know Tongning really gave it to me, and I didn't know it was so expensive. I'm just a worker. I have no money. Can you let me off this time? Chen Xingyan looked down at the kneeling Little Five and glared at her. Get up. Leave this matter to Nzaheo. If he says you don't need to pay, I won't hold you accountable. Annie was originally resting in her room. When she heard a commotion outside, she immediately stood up to check. Seeing Little Five kneeling in front of Chen Xingyan, her eyes immediately turned red. Chen Xingyan, how did I offend you? How could you treat him like this? Chapter 641. Chen Xingyan couldn't be bothered talking to Annie, so she gave Nzaheo a phone call. Something has happened. Come over and deal with it. Nzaheo had just left Director Chun Feng's home when he received a phone call from Chen Xingyan. He immediately rushed over to the apartment. As soon as he arrived, he saw Chen Xingyan sitting on the sofa with her legs crossed while Annie comforted the crying Little Five. Mr. In, you're here at the right time. Hurry and help me talk to Little Five. He broke Xingyan's game console and Xingyan said it costs $3 million to fix it. Little Five can't afford it, so all he can do is sell his home. Chen Xingyan and Nzaheo both knew that Annie was pretending to be weak, but Annie knew better than anyone else. Nzaheo glanced at the game console and then looked at Chen Xingyan. As their gazes met, Chen Xingyan's eyes were clearly telling him to try and help them. Of course, Nzaheo was cunning as he asked straightforwardly, how did the game console break? It was. Someone jumped around on my game console while hugging their dog. Chen Xingyan shrugged. Chen Xingyan shrugged her shoulders. I already told you yesterday, This was a gift from Tongning. Unfortunately, some people thought I was lying and thought I stole the limelight from their boss. So, they wanted to play around. But they accidentally messed things up. Chen Xingyan understood Little Five better than anyone, so she wasn't going to give them any face. Little Five, is this what happened? Mr. and Little Five and I don't have much of a background, so it's impossible for us to fork out a few $1,000,000. So, I'm willing to return the role in The Savage Wars to Xingyan. I hope Xingyan won't blame Little Five. Little Five is still young and doesn't understand much. Xingyan, please don't take it to heart. Chen Xingyan thought to herself, do I need you to let me go? It's reasonable for you to return something that originally belonged to me. Plus, it's reasonable for your people to compensate for the damage they caused. Who allowed you to use something that belonged to me to compensate for my losses? Chen Xingyan asked straightforwardly. Don't turn a good character into such a disgusting thing. Characters are characters, and game consoles are game consoles. And Zaheo, what do you say? The game console? I'll take it back to the factory and have it fixed in Germany. There's no need for compensation, and Zaheo said as he crossed his arms and looked at the game console. Annie and Little Five heaved a sigh of relief. But Little Five can no longer do this job. Annie doesn't have any power yet, and you're already bullying her. Then, if she becomes famous one day, are you going to look down on me? And Zaheo said coldly to Little Five. Annie and Xiaowu were stunned at the same time. Mr. In, I will find you a new assistant. What about you, Chen Xingyan? Is there anything else to say? Humph. After all, this was not the point of conflict. So, Elder Mo was extremely indifferent towards this result. That's enough talking. Come and pick me up. It's been a while since I've seen Tongning. As soon as Father Mo heard this, he immediately led Hua Wenfeng and Elder Mo to Hyatt Regency in a grandiose manner. In reality, Tongning had already lost her patience from waiting. Hua Wenfeng's efficiency wasn't very good, however. Tongning never expected that Elder Mo would follow along. As usual, Auntie Bai opened the front door and Tongning's bodyguards were still there. As soon as they entered the living room, Tongning immediately stood up and offered her seat to Elder Mo. Grandfather. Elder Mo scoffed as he sat down beside Tongning. He had no intention of saying anything. Meanwhile, Hua Wenfeng threw the DNA report at Tongning's face. See for yourself. Chapter 642. The DNA test report did not land on Tongning's face because Elder Mo blocked it. Wenfeng, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't touch me. Father, that's because you don't know how much this actress has crossed the line. Hua Wenfeng said as she leaned against Elder Mo's leg. Who are you calling an actress? Elder Mo furrowed his brows. Father, this woman actually said that I am not Mo Ting's mother. In a fit of anger, I want to get a DNA test done. I can't take this lying down, Father. After speaking, Hua Wenfeng stood up in agitation. She pointed at Tongning and said in a shrill voice, since everyone is here today, let's settle this once and for all. Tongning, I won't hold it against you for bullying me and slandering me. But the fact that you said I am not Mo Ting's mother is too hurtful. So, what do you want to do? Elder Mo asked. Father, this woman can't continue to stay in the Mo family. She will only worsen the conflict between us. Think about it. Before she married into the family, our family was harmonious and never blushed with each other. This is all because of her. I want to kick her out. Elder Mo did not say a word, but his eyes were filled with annoyance. Meanwhile, Tongning walked over to Elder Mo's side and picked up the DNA test report. She looked at it carefully as if she was reading it word by word. Miss Hua, aren't you making a big deal out of nothing? However, before you did the DNA test, I simply said it casually. I didn't really think you weren't Mo Ting's mother. But after you did the DNA test, I began to have my doubts. Tongning placed the 99.9% paternity test report on the table and lifted her eyes to look at Hua Wenfeng. Otherwise, why would you fake it? What do you mean? Hua Wenfeng stared into Tongning's eyes. What are you trying to say? I think I've made myself very clear. You have faked this report. Hua Wenfeng was furious. Hua Wenfeng was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. I have always been Ting's mother. Why would I need to fake it? You slut, don't make irresponsible remarks. Can you guarantee that this report is accurate? Tongning asked in seriousness. Of course. Even if it was tested 100 times, the result would not change. Do you think I'm like you? You're so fond of scheming. Madame Hua, I will ask you one last time. Are you sure of the authenticity of this DNA report? You bitch, you're indeed difficult to deal with. Previously, you accused Wenfeng of not being Ting's biological mother and tried to drive a wedge between mother and son. Now that Wenfeng has presented us with the DNA test, you're accusing her of falsifying it. Let me tell you, we just received the report. There's no way we could have tampered with it. Seeing that Tongning refused to admit her mistakes, Father Imo pointed to her nose and started cursing. That's impossible. Tongning repeated these 3 words in a firm manner. You. Father Imo was furious as he reached out his hand to give Ting a slap. But he was stopped by the bodyguards. Tongning sneered as she looked at Father Imo. She then picked up the report and said to everyone, "Why would I say it's impossible? Because the sample that Auntie Bai gave you did not belong to Ting. The toothbrush belonged to Auntie Bai. Everyone in the Imo family, including the bodyguards, knows about it. Are you telling me that the relationship between the two of you is 99.9%? Isn't that a bit too funny?" After hearing Tongning's words, Father Imo and Hua Wenfeng were stunned. How? How is that possible? Why is it not possible? Auntie Bai simply wanted to teach you a lesson after seeing how you kept causing trouble for me. Who would have thought that you would actually fake the report? No, it's not like that. I didn't. This time, Hua Wenfeng did not tamper with the report. But how could she explain the results of the DNA test? No, you must have spouted nonsense. This is Ting's to begin with. It's up to you whether you want to believe me or not. Things like this can be exposed with a second test. Why would I need to hide it? Tongning threw the report back at Hua Wenfeng. You said you didn't fake it. Then, how do you explain the results of this report? Hua Wenfeng's eyes grew wide as she took a few steps back. I didn't. The truth is right in front of us. If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you tamper with the DNA test? Tongning, don't be so aggressive. Father Imo saw Hua Wenfeng being pushed around, so he immediately stepped forward to protect her. Seeing Hua Wenfeng being forced into a corner, Father Imo immediately stepped forward to protect her. This report doesn't count. Let's do another test. Tongning sneered without saying a word. Meanwhile, Father Imo turned to look at Elder Imo. Father, what do you say? Are you going to sit back and watch as this woman bullies your son and daughter-in-law? Right now, I want to know why Wenfeng tampered with the DNA test, Elder Imo asked straightforwardly. Father, you can't just listen to Tongning's side of the story and choose to believe her over your son and daughter-in-law, Father Imo said angrily. Father, I am your son. Are you going to turn against your son and daughter-in-law for the sake of an outsider? But, compared to Hua Wenfeng, I am indeed more willing to believe in Tongning. Elder Imo shrugged innocently. Father, enough. Elder Mo's sudden shout finally made everyone quiet down. Afterwards, Elder Imo stood up and walked over to Father Imo and Mrs. Imo. Seeing the two of you makes me lose all my face. Who would do a DNA test just because they were angry? If the media finds out, do you want everyone to think that Ting has an alternate identity? Let's not talk about the incident at Global Square anymore. As an elder, isn't it bad enough that you framed, poisoned, cursed, schemed, and wronged your daughter-in-law? Even if an animal bit your own child, you wouldn't distort the truth, would you? Are the two of you worse than animals? Elder Imo questioned the two men standing in the living room. Don't think that just because Ting is your child, he has to listen to you. Since the two of you are my descendants, does that mean I can order you around? If that's the case, then I'll tell you to immediately get a divorce and get Hua Wenfeng out of my sight. What do you think? Father Imo looked at Elder Imo in shock. I'm not going to make a move today, and I can't be bothered to hit you two old fogies. You've never done anything well, yet you dare to cause a scene here? What is there to cause a scene about? What right do you have to cause a scene here? Chapter 643. Don't you feel embarrassed that you're acting like this in front of so many people? How dare you ask me to uphold justice? If I was also an unreasonable old man, what would you have done to me? Father Mo asked as he approached the two women. You've never fulfilled your responsibilities as a parent, yet you have the audacity to ask Mo Ting to do things for you. Who gave you the confidence to do this? Hua Wenfeng, stop stirring up trouble for me. From the moment you changed your name and refused to acknowledge your ancestors, I no longer wanted you as my daughter-in-law. In fact, I don't even want my useless son anymore. Who do you think you are? Just because you've learned a little bit of technology, you can look down on this and that. If you weren't so old, I would have slapped you across the face a long time ago. Father Mo and Hua Wenfeng's faces alternated between green and white. They had no words to refute. Who do you want to kick out? This is Mo Ting's home. Even your luxurious place was bought by Mo Ting. Aren't you ashamed to chase someone out? Father. Don't call me father, Elder Mo ordered. From now on, Mo Ting doesn't need to call you father either. Since you're so arrogant and look down on your son, daughter-in-law and father, from today onwards, you will follow Hua Wenfeng's surname, Hua. You don't need to use the surname Mo anymore. I can tell you've been mesmerized by this vixen for many years. After hearing Elder Mo's words, Father Mo and Hua Wenfeng were both shocked as their hearts began to panic. After all, Elder Mo's authority was inviolable. Even someone as heartless as Hua Wenfeng had no choice but to admit defeat in front of Elder Mo. However, she never imagined that the relationship between Elder Mo and Tongning would be so deep and good. Tongning, from now on, if you see these two causing a scene here, don't hold back. Just get the bodyguards to beat them up. Whether they die or get crippled, they deserve it. This is what grandfather said. If anything happens, grandfather will take responsibility. Elder Mo obviously felt he wasn't ruthless enough, so he continued to speak up for Tongning. Don't think that just because they're being polite to you two jerks, they're actually afraid of you. Mo Xiaoyuan, after we get home, you better give me a reason as to why Hua Wenfeng falsified the DNA test report. If you can't give me a reason, you can get a divorce. There is no room for negotiation. Father Mo never imagined that he would be taught a lesson by Elder Mo in front of so many people. In fact, he was humiliated in front of so many people. Hua Wenfeng was angry, but she did not dare to say anything. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not dare to make a sound because Elder Mo was standing in front of them righteously. Dad, what kind of dad wants his son to get a divorce? Then what are you doing here? What do you think you're doing here? Hearing this question, Father Mo fell silent. That would be like slapping himself in the face. Father, you can say whatever you want. I didn't fake the DNA report. Hua Wenfeng continued to be stubborn. If you don't believe me, I can use my life to prove my innocence. Stop talking about death in front of me. You won't scare me. If you die, the worst that can happen is that you've committed suicide. It has nothing to do with any of us. I'm sure you know better than anyone whether it's worth it or not. Hua Wenfeng was infuriated, but there was nothing she could do. The old man had already stopped her from putting on a show. After all, he had been an experienced actress for so many years. Hua Wenfeng's little tricks had already been used many times in her dramas. If there's nothing else, then get lost. Just looking at you makes me angry. Father Mo was humiliated, but there was nothing he could do. All he could do was glare at Tongning as he supported the frustrated Hua Wenfeng and left. As for the others, they were secretly laughing at the two of them in their hearts. What did it mean to shoot oneself in the foot? These two were acting with their own strength. Grandfather, you didn't need to do this. After the couple left, Tongning helped Elder Mo sit down on the sofa. After all, I was also at fault. Stop pretending. Don't we see too many people like this on TV? I really don't want to admit that he's my own son. It's so embarrassing, Elder Mo scoffed. From now on, if these two cause trouble again, you don't need to hold back. If they die, I'll take responsibility. Grandfather, I'm really angry. Elder Mo took a deep breath. Elder Mo took a deep breath. He was disappointed with Father Mo for not living up to his expectations. When did that rascal become so unable to differentiate right from wrong? Grandfather, if I hadn't done this, did you think that Imo Ting would have stayed in the study room without showing his face? Elder Imo was well aware of how much Imo Ting cared about Tongning. Of course, as her grandfather, he also doted on Tongning. Tongning smiled and did not say another word. She knew that Elder Imo had always been a man of steel. This time, Bai Lihua did not show her face. She simply watched from a hidden corner. In fact, she even watched from the window as Hua Wenfeng was carried out by Father Imo. She struggled and yelled, "I didn't fake anything. The DNA test was real. Old Imo, trust me. I really didn't fake anything." This was the first time that Bai Lihua felt that Hua Wenfeng's expression was so sincere that she couldn't help but believe that she was telling the truth. Today was just a small test. From now on, there were more exciting days waiting for Hua Wenfeng and Imo Xiaoyuan. Meanwhile, Zhehao received the final notification from the production crew. They immediately sent him a contract. Needless to say, the role still belonged to Chen Xingyan. That night, Zhehao sat calmly on the sofa in the living room. He looked at the two women with a serious expression as he handed the contract to Chen Xingyan. "I've said it before, I can't influence the final decision of the production crew. They have decided to use Chen Xingyan. Annie, you need to accept this result." Annie was of course upset, but Zhehao had already used the production crew as a shield, so there was nothing she could say. With tears in her eyes, she turned around and returned to her room. After receiving the contract, Chen Xingyan flipped through it carelessly. In reality, she did not care about the contents. "Are you satisfied?" Zhehao had been biased towards Chen Xingyan the entire time, but he couldn't let this brat see through him. "I can only say that I'm more capable than others." Chen Xingyan held up the contract proudly. "Hey, if you give me the contract this time, your little sweetheart is going to be angry. Why are you acting like you're the one who got the best deal?" "I'm just worried about you," Chen Xingyan said before she placed a kiss on the contract and took it away. However, not long after, Annie received a phone call from her cousin. "My dear cousin, from what I know, Director Matt has only invited Chen Xingyan. He has never even heard of your name." Chapter 644. "That's impossible. Mr. N said that my chances were the same as Chen Xingyan's. How could Matt not have heard of my name? Why don't you ask him again?" Annie was anxious. She felt like she had been struck by lightning. She never imagined that Zhehao had set her up behind her back. "I've already asked him clearly. He has never heard of your name before. This is the truth. I'm still busy, so I won't talk to you any further." Cousin, help me find out what happened. I really want to know what happened," Annie said in a serious tone as tears welled up in her eyes. Hearing her cry, the man was put in a difficult position. But, in the end, he still agreed. Okay. Tell me everything that happened, and I'll help you find out later." After a while, Annie explained everything that had happened over the past few days to her cousin, including how she had been bullied over the past few days. After listening to everything patiently, the man finally shared his intuition with Annie. "Little cousin, according to your brother's many years of experience, you should have been tricked by someone." "Cousin, I don't quite understand. Why are you so stupid? I need you to explain yourself." "What I mean is, your manager has never fought for a chance for you. He simply used this as an excuse to teach your opponent a lesson." "No, Mr. N treats me very well," Annie retorted. "Think about it carefully and see if this is the case." After speaking, the man hung up the phone and Annie fell into deep thought. She never expected that Zhehao would treat her in such a way. So, she immediately pulled out her phone to ask Zhehao for an explanation. But, if this was really the case, wouldn't she be put at a disadvantage if she went straight to Zhehao? After careful consideration, she decided to hold back. The next morning, Chen Xingyan was looking at a contract in the living room. As soon as Annie stepped out of her bedroom and saw Chen Xingyan's back, she couldn't help but approach her and ask, "Xingyan, you and Mr. N must have known each other for a long time, right?" Chen Xingyan felt like the sun had risen from the west. How could Annie speak to her in such a serious manner without a hint of pity? "I met him a little earlier than you. I can tell that he treats you very well." "Fine." Chen Xingyan humphed as she pointed her middle finger at the air. Which eye of yours saw this? But no matter how you deny it, it's still good. Chen Xingyan suddenly felt it was impossible to communicate with Annie at this moment. If there's nothing else, can you not disturb me while I'm reading the contract? Just as the couple were speechless, Zhao knocked on the door and entered the apartment. Without even glancing at Chen Xingyan, he said to Annie, "Pack up, there's an important audition." Annie froze for a moment, but she didn't feel happy at all. She felt like she could no longer trust Zhao anymore. What? You don't want to go? Mr. N, please wait for me. After speaking, Annie stood up and returned to her room. She quickly changed her clothes. Today's tolerance was for tomorrow's pride, Annie told herself in her heart. Meanwhile, in the living room, Zhao watched as Chen Xingyan flipped through the contract. He couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, sign the contract. I won't sell you out for the audition. That's hard to say. Chen Xingyan twirled the pin in her hand. It's better for me to be cautious around you. Whatever you want. Soon, Annie stepped out of her room dressed in a formal gown and followed behind Zhao. Chen Xingyan watched as the two left without any expression. She simply continued to read through her contract without taking Annie seriously. A moment later, the couple boarded the van. Zhao looked at the silent Annie and couldn't help but laugh. Why are you so quiet today? Are you still upset that you didn't get the role? A little. There's no need for that. Today's resource is on par with the Savage Wars. You should know that I went to the US to study for a period of time. During that time, I've built up a lot of connections in the US. So, you need to cherish this opportunity, Zhao said as he handed a script to Annie. This is the audition clip. Have a look first. Annie's eyes once again lit up with hope. Of course, there were two reasons why Zhao arranged this. Firstly, he wanted to train Chen Xingyan, and secondly, he wanted to take Annie down a peg. He wanted her to know that her results at school were nothing. Is this better than Chen Xingyan's script? Zhao looked at Annie. To be exact, there was a warning in his eyes. Annie, I treat all of you equally. However, you all have your own flaws and need to be polished. Okay, Mr. N. After speaking, Annie calmed down and looked at the script Zhao had given her. She couldn't be worse than Chen Xingyan in any way, especially when it came to status and background. Chen Xingyan was nothing. Of course, this was because she had no idea that Chen Xingyan had another identity. To ensure that there were no issues with the contract, Chen Xingyan directly brought it to Hyatt Regency for Tongning to look through. Don't worry, Zhao may be training you, but he won't trick you in these important areas. Tongning put down the contract and winked at Chen Xingyan. But I don't actually want to go overseas. Who told you that I wanted to go overseas? Tongning raised an eyebrow. The contract has already stated that the filming location will be in Beijing. The crew of the Savage Wars wants to borrow some of our special sets for filming. Okay, since you've clarified everything, you should go home. Don't disturb your Ningjia. She's been very tired these past few days, Bai Lihua said after seeing Chen Xingyan's mischievous behavior. It's fine, Auntie Bai. Go ahead. Mr. Mo has already instructed me to remind you to get some rest upstairs. Hearing that it was Mo Ting's instructions, Tongning had no choice but to stand up and head upstairs. In that case, help me take care of Xingye. After speaking, Tongning entered the bedroom. At this time, Mo Ting was already lying in bed as he waved at her. Come here. Her steps were light as Mo Ting helped her sit down on the bed. When did you come back? Why aren't you working at Hai Rue? I missed you. I came back halfway through. I was afraid I wouldn't be by your side when you had an afternoon nap. Huh. Tongning was confused. I've had a little cramp over the past few days, Mo Ting said as he looked at Tongning's legs. Did you think that if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't know? Chapter 645. It's not a big deal. Pregnant women are always a little stressed. Tongning leaned against Mo Ting's chest and breathed in his unique scent. But, for you to notice, I am still very happy. If you still have cramps this afternoon, let me know. I'll give you a massage and you'll feel better. Okay, hubby. Tongning closed her eyes and fell asleep in Mo Ting's embrace. Perhaps it was because her lover was by her side, but Tongning did not have cramps and slept peacefully. When she woke up, she could still see Mo Ting in the same position as before. Tongning's heart ached a little as she sat up in his arms. She then twisted her body to place her pillow under Mo Ting's head. However, just as she bent over, Mo Ting opened his eyes and looked at her lovingly. "You're awake?" She wasn't sure why, but seeing Mo Ting like this, Tongning leaned over and kissed him. She sucked on his lower lip and kissed him endlessly. Mo Ting froze for a moment as his body tensed up. A moment later, he gently wrapped his arm around Tongning's shoulder and began to respond. It wasn't until they both found it hard to breathe that Mo Ting finally pulled away. Seeing this, Mo Ting maintained his awkward position and smiled at Tongning. "Did you miss me?" Tongning understood that Mo Ting had left out the word want, so her face turned slightly red. "Let me take you to the shower." Tongning looked down at her stomach, but Mo Ting insisted on hugging her. "Don't worry, I will be very gentle. I won't hurt you or the child." After a long time, it was impossible for a couple to not want to merge into each other's bodies. After all, they needed a sense of belonging. They needed to have each other in their hearts. In reality, Bai Lihua remembered the words that Hua Wenfeng shouted as she left Hyatt Regency. She didn't know why, but this time, she was willing to believe that Hua Wenfeng wasn't lying. In that case, she would have to reinterpret the DNA test results and explain why they were 99.9% related. In order to find out the truth, Bai Lihua needed to get a new sample of Hua Wenfeng's DNA. So, while she was cleaning the living room, she paid extra attention to whether or not Hua Wenfeng had left a strand of hair behind. Sometimes, there were some things that even she did not understand. Of course, DNA was only one aspect. She still needed to return to the Bei family to investigate the unknown reasons behind this. Perhaps it was God's blessing, but Bai Lihua managed to find Hua Wenfeng's hair in the living room. As Hua Wenfeng was the only one who had dyed her hair brown, it was easily recognizable with the naked eye. It didn't take long before Bai Lihua secretly sent samples of herself, Hua Wenfeng and Mo Ting to the hospital. She wanted to know the truth behind all of this. The next day, Bai Lihua asked for leave from Tongning and Mo Ting. Although Mo Ting allowed it, after Bai Lihua left, he asked, "Don't you think there's anything suspicious about this Annie Bai? Many of Aunt Bai's actions can't be explained, but she really didn't mean to harm us. Plus, you've already done your research. She is just an ordinary woman." "That's right," Tongning replied in seriousness. "Do you really think so?" Tongning looked at Mo Ting with deep meaning. The couple understood each other, so of course, Tongning didn't think the same way. But there were some things that she still didn't understand and needed some time to understand. "If you're still worried, you can ask someone to follow her. Yesterday, I saw her carefully picking up Ms. Hua's hair and changing my toothbrush." "What are you trying to say?" Tongning's eyes grew big. "Did she do another DNA test?" "We'll know when the results are out." So, all they could do now was wait. "Since the truth is right next to us, let's transfer Lu Che back. I don't want you to be so tired. Plus, Long Jie needs a husband," Tongning suggested as she put down the glass of milk in her hands. "He's already on his way back." In reality, Tongning didn't even need to say anything. The production crew that Nzaheo took Annie to for an interview gave them a response the next day. In the end, they booked a 10-year-old girl to play the supporting female lead because she was exactly what the crew needed. Annie once again missed out on a role. So, in a low mood, she approached her cousin for a drink. Inside the club, the sound system was deafening. Meanwhile, Annie was singing and dancing with a few men in a private room. From the looks of it, a place like this was a walk in the park. "Cousin, I didn't get a role again." As soon as the man heard Annie's complaint, he looked at her suspiciously. According to Nzaheo's current status, he wouldn't allow you to lose everything. "Are you not serious?" "I'm extremely serious. But, as long as there's a good opportunity, he will immediately give it to that woman. What can I do?" Annie lay on the table, crying and laughing at the same time. "I'm just a newcomer with no power or influence in the industry. My only backer is you. Cousin, can you understand the pain in my heart? I know someone like Nzaheo. Logically speaking, he wouldn't be biased. After all, he's made quite a few models famous over the years. Could you be overthinking things? Annie shook her head as her eyes turned red. I'm not overthinking things. He only has eyes for Qin Xingyan. How about this? I'll do you a favor and help you test him, the man whispered in Annie's ear. I'm going to give it a try. I want to see if Nzaheo has the intention to train you. If he doesn't, then you should leave as soon as possible. With your qualifications, you can definitely find a better manager. After hearing her cousin's words, Annie nodded her head. Her future was something that would last a lifetime. So, she couldn't allow Nzaheo to bully her like this. Nzaheo doesn't know about our relationship, does he? No, he doesn't. That's good. Annie looked at the expression on Tongning's face and felt a little uneasy. She had no idea what her cousin was going to ask and how Nzaheo was going to hand in his answer. Cousin, I think you're overthinking things. With your qualifications, you're many times better than Qin Xingyan. Plus, you've already won so many awards. Don't tell me you're afraid of an extra? Annie looked at the man with a deeper meaning. Okay, I'll help you find your next job. When the time comes, you can decide for yourself. Thank you, cousin. Whether Nzaheo was biased or not, he was probably the only one who knew in his heart. In the middle of the night, Nzaheo's living room was still lit with a yellow light. This was because he had dismantled Qin Xingyan's video game console and was currently learning how to reassemble it. Chapter 646. The next morning, Nzaheo received a phone call from the boss of Hongchuan Film and Television inviting him to lunch. Nzaheo had never interacted with anyone from Hongchuan before, but Hongchuan had a certain status in Beijing. So, he arrived on time and used it as a way to build connections. Nzaheo had no idea that this was a trap set up by Annie and her cousin. He simply thought they invited him because they wanted to work together. Annie's cousin's surname was Xie. Even though he said he was the boss of Hongchuan, it was only because he had shares in the company. The one who had the final say was actually his father. But his father didn't like Annie, so he never helped her. Director In, you've been quite popular in the industry lately. Xie Tong stood up from the dining table and extended his right hand towards Nzaheo. Thank you so much for coming. As soon as Nzaheo stepped into the hotel, he understood the man's status, so he did not prepare to work with him. He originally thought someone from Hongchuan was here to discuss a collaboration. Who would have thought it was a powerless person? Thank you, young master, you're too polite. Nzaheo extended his hand and shook the man's hand. Actually, I know you have a stunt double that signed a contract with the Savage Wars. But the role was originally reserved for my agency's artist. So, I wanted to ask if it's possible for your man to give up the role, Xie Tong asked in a serious tone. Xie Tong pretended to be serious. That role is very important to us. So, you can name your conditions. After hearing this, Nzaheo did not say a word. Oh, by the way, I also know you have an action actress called Annie. If you're willing to give up the role, I can help Annie secure a good role. Nzaheo smiled and asked Xie Tong in return, You came prepared? Young Master Xie, are you asking me to sacrifice my artists? How is this considered a sacrifice? Qin Xingyan still has plenty of opportunities. Didn't I agree to give Annie a role that's not inferior to the Savage Wars? After all, she's working for you, so this shouldn't be a problem for you. Why aren't you compensating Qin Xingyan? Nzaheo asked as he got straight to the point. Because the starting point of the production is quite high. According to Qin Xingyan's request, she can't go, Xie Tong replied straightforwardly. Director In, no matter how I look at it, this matter is beneficial to you. Don't tell me you still want to reconsider? By sacrificing Qin Xingyan, the three of us can achieve our goals. After you compensate Qin Xingyan, wouldn't that be a win-win situation? Nzaheo's eyes were originally focused on the table, but after hearing Xie Tong's words, he remained calm. I won't be touching Qin Xingyan's role. So, I don't think we can go through with this deal. What if I could give Annie a better role? I don't need it, Nzaheo replied. Xie Tongkai looked at Nzaheo with a serious expression. The two men stared at each other for quite some time. In the end, Xie Tongkai leaned back in his chair and glared at Nzaheo. For Qin Xingyan, Her role in the Savage Wars isn't that important. I'm sure you know this, right? Yet, you're not willing to give a better opportunity to Annie? Young Master Xie, this is my business. Aren't you afraid that Annie will find out about this? Xie Tong asked with a deeper meaning. I really feel sorry for Annie. Plus, Director In, I don't think you're as rational as the rumors say. If you had a brain, you wouldn't have rejected such a generous offer so easily. Annie, I have my own plans. If young Master Xie has nothing else to say, I won't stay any longer. I still have something to do in the afternoon. After speaking, Nzaheo buttoned up his suit and stood up from the sofa to leave. Not long after, Annie approached Xie Tong from a nearby booth with a gloomy expression on her face. It seems it's time for you to get a new manager, Xie Tong said straightforwardly. Nzaheo has no intention of training you. At least, for the time being, all his energy is focused on Chen Xingyan. Annie understood what Xie Tong was saying, but Nzaheo had signed her on, yet he didn't train her properly. Why was he doing this? At this moment, Annie still didn't understand the reason. Afterwards, Xie Tong pulled out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Annie. If you've thought it through, give me a call here. After speaking, Xie Tong also left the hotel, leaving Annie all alone in her seat in a daze. Not long after, Annie returned to the apartment to find Nzaheo installing a game console for Chen Xingyan in the living room. At that moment, she thought Nzaheo had always been high and mighty and would never do something so small for anyone. But her judgment was obviously wrong. Mr. Un, today, I received a phone call from Hongchuan Film and Television. They want me to audition for a role. I'm not going, Nzaheo replied without turning his head as he picked up his tools. But why? Annie questioned. Why can't I attend the audition? Hongchuan is only barely reliable. Plus, it's only during the chairman's reign. The higher-ups are currently in a mess. If you go, you might fall into a trap. Mr. N, are you trying to stop me from developing? Hearing this question, Nzaheo finally stopped what he was doing and lifted his head to look at the serious Annie. Trust is the prerequisite for cooperation. Do I need to stop you from developing? Annie did not respond. However, she thought to herself, if there was no prerequisite, he wouldn't have done it. But with Chen Xingyan, he would. If there's nothing else, get some rest. Don't think too much. Annie clenched her fists and headed upstairs to her room. She then pulled out the business card that Xie Tong had given her. It wasn't like she had no choice but to follow Nzaheo. Plus, the way Nzaheo treated her, it was obvious that he had never treated her like an artist that yearned for success. From start to finish, he made her wait. In order to protect Chen Xingyan's role, he even rejected Xie Tong's offer. Annie couldn't understand what was going on, so she gave Little Five a phone call to complain. At this time, Little Five reminded her, Annie, I think Mr. N only appears to value you on the surface, but he has a motive. Did you know? I have a feeling that he brought you back because he wanted to provoke Chen Xingyan. Hearing this, Annie froze in shock. Because Little Five's words had woken her up. Chen Xingyan had never been obedient to Nzaheo's teachings, so he found her to motivate Chen Xingyan. This was also the reason why Nzaheo didn't care about her future. Reality was cruel. Annie thought bitterly. So, in a fit of anger, she directly called another agency. Don't expect me to back out so easily. Since you've played me, then I will return the favor. However, as soon as she climbed over the window and entered the living room, she thought she would be able to climb over easily. Who would have thought? Her head would get stuck in the gap between the window and she couldn't advance or retreat. Damn you! Nzaheo was sitting in the living room, enjoying a small drink. When he heard the commotion, he immediately walked over to the balcony. There, he saw Chen Xingyan stuck at the window, clutching her stomach and laughing out loud. What are you laughing at? Help me. Instead of using the door, you chose to climb over the window. This is karma. Nzaheo quickly opened the window and let her in. People with good martial arts don't want to use the front door. How can I show off my abilities? Chen Xingyan was extremely disdainful. especially when she smelled the alcohol on Enzaheo's body. She pinched her nose and asked, "How much did you drink?" "A 19-year-old young lady, it's very dangerous for you to enter a single man's home," Enzaheo said as he walked towards the front door. "If you dare to move, I will paralyze half of your body." In reality, a threat like this did not have any effect on Qin Xingyan. But before she could notice, Enzaheo pressed her against the wall and trapped her between his hands. "No matter how strong you are, you're still stuck against the wall." Qin Xingyan's face turned red as she used the iron head technique. All that was heard was a loud bang as the couple held onto their heads and cried out in pain. "Qin Xingyan, I've realized that you're quite violent. Since I know you're fine, I'm going to go back." Qin Xingyan did not want to stay with this man that reeked of alcohol. "It's time to go back. Otherwise, I wonder what the news will write about us." And Zaheo returned to the sofa, picked up a wine glass, and continued to drink on his own. Qin Xingyan understood that Zaheo was referring to the incident with Yun Xian. "Let's go back through the front door." For some reason, under the moonlight, Zaheo had a different kind of charm, especially his languid appearance. Finally, he wasn't as serious as he used to be. Instead, he looked more like a person. Qin Xingyan did not move. Women were born to comfort men. It gave them a great sense of achievement. "Why aren't you leaving?" "I want to comfort you," Qin Xingyan said involuntarily. "How? Use your body?" And Zaheo smirked as he stood in the dark. Qin Xingyan was a little surprised. "I don't want to commit a crime. Plus, I will never repeat my previous mistakes." Did Zaheo mean that he would never develop feelings for an artist again? Hearing this, Qin Xingyan didn't know why, but she suddenly felt a little upset. It didn't take long before Zaheo fell asleep on the sofa. Qin Xingyan leaned over and looked at him. She couldn't help but kick him a few times. "Stupid man, you've finally given me a chance to get revenge." Not only did Qin Xingyan kick Zaheo, she also used Zaheo's Mont Blanc pen to draw a large picture of a tortoise on his face. Actually, Qin Xingyan had no idea that this was going to be the only time she and Zaheo had a relaxing and simple relationship, because on the night that Zaheo was drunk, Annie went to see someone else behind their backs. In fact, they came to an agreement and agreed to pay Zaheo's compensation for breaking the contract. However, they wanted Annie to do something for them first. Annie was more than happy to do this. After all, when Zaheo first approached her, she was full of hope for her career. But now, all she felt for Zaheo was hatred. So, she wanted Qin Xingyan to experience the same pain. The night quickly passed and dawn arrived. Zaheo woke up from his sleep feeling a sharp pain in his hip bone. He then entered the bathroom to wash up. As he looked at his reflection in the mirror, he couldn't help but smile helplessly. But a moment later, he couldn't smile anymore. The production crew had given him a phone call. Qin Xingyan's role had been retained, but a new role had been added to the script. This role was also going to be played by an Asian, but the role had already been confirmed. And Zaheo had no idea who this person was. As long as Qin Xingyan wasn't replaced, everything was fine. Since it wasn't an open audition, it was easy to understand that they were bringing money into the cast. Of course, he had no idea that this role was specifically created to counter Qin Xingyan. Although they were blood-related sisters, Hua Wenfeng had stolen Tongning's identity in a bloody manner. "Aunt Bai, what happened? Why are you so distracted?" Tongning could sense the change in Bai Lihua. She could also tell that Bai Lihua's mood had changed a lot after returning from her trip. "Xiao Ning, do you think the scenes that often appear in movies also happen in real life?" Bai Lihua asked. Tongning sensed something, but she did not directly ask Bai Lihua. Instead, she smiled and replied, "Art indeed originates from life, but it doesn't surpass life. Actually, we see a lot of news every day. In this world, there are many complicated lives that can't be portrayed in movies." "Aunt Bai, why do you ask?" "I mean, if your family took everything away from you, what would you do?" Tongning looked at Bai Lihua. The answer was actually quite simple. "Tang Xian once tried to take everything away from me, but in the end, everyone in Beijing saw what happened to her." Aunt Bai, you know very well that no matter if it's a parent, a sibling, or a child, no one has the right to take something away from another. This is the fundamental right of a person, because they are an individual. But what if they were taken away from you? They would take it back the way they took it. What Hua Wenfeng had done wasn't called a robbery, it was a deliberate murder. Bai Lihua was well aware that it was time for Hua Wenfeng to pay her back for all the pain that she had endured over the years. Worst of all, Bai Lihua guessed that Hua Wenfeng was afraid that one day, she would come back and take everything back. That's why she decided to use an explosion to bury the truth. This was the only way she could destroy Hua Wenfeng's face and fingerprints, leaving her with no way to prove her innocence. What a vicious scheme. Thank you, Xiao Ning. Annie Bai, if you have ever been wronged, feel free to tell me. Bai Lihua immediately shook her head. After all, she was going to personally ask Hua Wenfeng for every single cent of the debt. At the same time, Tongning was almost certain of Bai Lihua's true identity, but she did not expose Bai Lihua. After all, the whole thing was too unbelievable. That night, just as Imo Ting returned home, Tongning whispered beside Imo Ting's ear, Auntie Bai asked me a lot of questions today. I'm sure she already has an answer in her heart. Plus, it seems she has only just figured out a few things. This was the first time Tongning had encountered something like this, so she couldn't make up her mind. Let's see what Aunt Bai wants to do. Imo Ting replied as he gently stroked Tongning's hair. If things are really as we predicted, then Auntie Bai's injuries and all the pain she has suffered over the years, she must have hidden them deep within her heart. Let's pretend we don't know anything. Tongning nodded her head. Just thinking about it makes my hair stand on end. In that case, the person who helped me get out of trouble and diverted the public's attention should be Aunt Bai, right? After speaking, Tongning lifted her head and met Imo Ting's gaze. Seeing his calm and piercing gaze, she immediately wrapped her arms around his neck. It's okay. The truth will be revealed sooner or later. Imo Ting did not say a word. He simply looked at his watch and reminded her, it's time to rest. If, and I'm just saying if, Hua Wenfeng has really treated Annie Bai in such a way, then she should be cut into 1,000 pieces. Imo Ting did not say a word. He simply helped Tongning lie down and placed his hand on her bulging stomach. Did the baby kick you today? She has been very good. She has been quietly staying in my stomach. Go to sleep. After speaking, Imo Ting prepared to get up. But Tongning grabbed onto his wrist. Ting, if, and I'm just saying if, the baby really has a congenital illness like Hua Wenfeng said, what should we do? Chapter 649. Don't trust her words. Imo Ting placed a kiss on Tongning's forehead and coaxed her to sleep before he left the bedroom. However, as he stood in the hallway on the second floor and looked down at Bai Lihua, who was tidying up the living room, a cold glint appeared in his eyes. Not just Bai Lihua, but both Imo Ting and Tongning were not people to be trifled with. The next morning, Bai Lihua stepped out of Hyatt Regency with the intention of heading to a nearby mall to buy some daily necessities. However, at the entrance of the estate, she was stopped by a security guard. Ms. Bai, someone has sent me a letter asking you to go to the underground garage. Bai Lihua didn't need to think to know who it was. But the security guard said in a rare tone, Ms. Bai, can I ask you for a favor? Otherwise, the owner will make things difficult for me. Bai Lihua was well aware of Hua Wenfeng's tricks. 19 years ago, Hua Wenfeng had always liked to play tricks like this. So, she replied coldly, you can look for whoever makes things difficult for you. It has nothing to do with me. After speaking, Bai Lihua turned and left. Hua Wenfeng did not dare to seek revenge on Tongning and Imo Ting, so she could only find trouble with her servant. Who would have thought? Even Imo Ting's servant wasn't someone that she could easily bully. After Bai Lihua returned from her shopping trip, she casually explained the situation to Tongning. She simply wanted to give her a heads up. After hearing this, Tongning realized that she had neglected Bai Lihua's safety. So, she gave Imo Ting a phone call and told him to be careful. At this time, Tongning could clearly feel Bai Lihua could no longer hide her hatred towards Hua Wenfeng. That afternoon, at the Hilton Hotel, Although Annie had already signed with someone else, she remained calm and collected in front of Qin Xingyan and Zaheo. She was the actress that had been selected for the Savage Wars. The new owner that Xie Tong had introduced to her was actually quite rich. Actually, I've thought of another way for you to vent your anger. However, you will need to pay a small price for it. The new owner's surname was Wang, and he was a middle-aged man in his 40s. As he sat on the sofa, he was dressed in a suit and held a glass of wine in his hand. He looked very polite, but no matter how stupid Annie was, she could tell what the scene in front of her meant. Previously, when she had signed the contract, it was because of her hatred towards Zaheo. But today, her mind was very clear, so she could understand what this man in his 40s was thinking. Chief Wang, I think I should go home. After speaking, Annie was about to get up, but Chief Wang stopped her. You are already a signed artist of my agency. Do you think I would harm you? Annie took a few steps back in fear. Just as she was about to ask for help, the man pounced on her and carried her on his shoulder. You want fame, but you don't want to pay for it. What kind of logic is this? You have no power, and you can't give me any benefits. What else do you think I like about you other than your face and body? In her panic, Annie had completely forgotten to resist. By the time she reacted, she had flipped over and pinned President Wang under her. Then, she threw a punch at him. If you dare to make a move today, your reputation will be ruined. Not only will you lose your role, you won't even have a place in the industry. After hearing President Wang's warning, Annie hesitated. Because of this, President Wang seemed to have seen through Annie's thoughts as he continued to tempt her. Did you think that your opponent is clean? In some dark corners, she is merely Zaheo's bedmate. Otherwise, why would Zaheo be biased towards her? Don't tell me you actually think that someone will admire your abilities? In this industry, there is no lack of abilities. As long as you follow me, the role of the villain in the Savage Wars will be yours. I will directly pay for Qin Xingyan to be replaced. Of course, if you reject me, you know what will happen to you. Thinking of Qin Xingyan and looking back at herself, Annie finally lowered her arms and looked at herself coldly. At this time, President Wang knew Annie's weakness, so he bravely pinned her under his body again. Afterwards, President Wang stood by the bed and put on his clothes. He turned his head to look at Annie, who was curled up on the bed. His voice was completely different from when he was on the bed. From now on, you will be my mistress. I promise to give you everything you want. You promised me that you would replace Qin Xingyan, Annie said as she buried herself in the blankets. Also, you will destroy Zaheo's reputation. If it wasn't for these two, she wouldn't have let her guard down and allowed President Wang to take advantage of her. If it wasn't for Zaheo, she would still be a simple university student. Of course, no problem. I can let you sign with my agency in a grand manner and give you the best resources. Annie knew that this President Wang was simply trying to make her fresh. Once a new person appeared, she would be nothing more than a pair of used shoes that would be tossed aside sooner or later. Even so, she was going to make Zaheo and Qin Xingyan pay the price first. Nighttime in Beijing was bustling and lively. And Zaheo was preparing a contract with the U.S. agency when he received another phone call. Qin Xingyan has been replaced due to her dirty background. You shouldn't have hidden it from me. She has a history of lying. And Zaheo had never come into contact with such a fickle production team before. He felt a fire burning in his heart that was about to ignite. But the contract has already been prepared. We're not signing anymore. We've already signed an action actress from another agency. And Zaheo held his forehead as he reminded himself not to lose his temper. I think the production team should give me an explanation. Otherwise, I will have to see you in court. We have the most professional team in the U.S. If you want to go to court, then be prepared to waste your time. Plus, it won't affect the progress of our production in the slightest. I'm calling you today to let you know. Do you have any respect for the contract? And Zaheo couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Let's talk in person. Otherwise, if the matter gets blown up, it won't do you any good. No need. Who do you think you are? You're just a new director. After speaking, the man hung up the phone, ignoring Zaheo's anger. And Zaheo almost threw the phone in his hand on the ground. These Americans were complete jerks. Their so-called history of lying was simply an excuse to replace Chen Xingyan. He wanted to know who was so arrogant as to replace Chen Xingyan. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.